Well, a very good evening on a Tuesday night. So welcome to the West Ham Voice. Only doing it on a Tuesday in honour of the Queen's funeral on Monday. Yeah, I thought it was the right thing to do. So welcome. Thank you for joining me on a Tuesday night. I'll be back to next Monday as usual again. Lots to talk about and all of it not great, is it really? We've had not a fantastic week in football. I guess I'm going to have to. I've tried to talk about it with other people as well, and I've written some thoughts about what's going on with West Ham. And who am I? I'm just a fan and a punter. But I'll give my views on it later on in the show. But we've got lots of other things to talk about as well. Yeah, the lovely piece that you all love. We're going to talk about women's football. The season started. The under-21s, the under-18s, player updates as well. And I'm not going to really analyse the two games that we've played, but I'm going to talk in general about David Moyes and where do we go from here will be the general question. But before we do all of that, let's see who's in the chat and say hello to you all. What's the chances of still being late and on mute? I better not be on mute. I've checked it 100 times, so I hope you can hear me well. Aha, Hammerette, very funny. Good evening to you, Bernie. If we carry on playing like we are, and do not change our system of play, we are going to end up in hot water. Why buy players and not play them? I think it's madness. I absolutely agree. And we'll talk about that later on, mate. Good evening to your usual suspect. Someone wrote earlier, who spends 180 million and make the team worse? Good evening, Anthony. How are you? I will be late. I wasn't that late. I was on time because he's filling out his job application for the West Ham manager's role. Good evening, Clive. How are you, mate? Yes, hit the like button and all that sort of stuff. Thank you. James, good evening to you. Good evening to everyone. Good evening to you, Neil. How are you, mate? From rural South Australia, 5:30 in the morning. I keep saying it. You never sleep. If Stella's not on time, I'm off to watch Family Guy. Probably be more entertaining than this. No, it won't. Record Family Guy. Watch it later. Jim, how are you? Good day from down under. Moyes has never been super. He's been very lucky. I don't know about that. Good evening to you, Keith. How are you, mate? I hope you're well. Who else have we got in the house? Mr. Dodsey. I'm not late. I'm never late. I always say everyone's really early. Thanks for the videos, mate. I put them up this morning. If you haven't seen Dodsey's trip to Everton, you've got to go and watch that after this show. He gives us some really good insight in things like, the way on the way there. It gives us hotels to check out. What's that place called? Whatever it was, that old snooker hall that you talked about. It's really worth going to have a look. He puts an awful lot of effort into getting me these videos. So respect to you, Dodsey. I hope you're well, mate. Andy, good evening to you. Good evening. Hope you're all well. It's not quite time to panic yet, but it's getting close to that point. Going to talk about that. Dodsey back again. When you say it's not time to panic, do you mean that? Cheeky git. Good evening, Mr. Sways. I always want to call you Patrick Sways. I hope you're. David Moyes out. That's the first one tonight. Good evening, Chris. I hope you're well. Thanks for joining. Vinay, good evening to you. Moyes' downfall could be his pettiness and favouritism. Won't start Benny or Cornet because they like to play attacking football. Won't start Areola. Fab is a favourite. Downs is the new Kral. It's interesting. I'm going to talk about all of that later on. James, Stella's almost on time. Time to panic. Yasu to you as well, Keith. I hope you will. Vinay, looking out of the window as the world coming to an end. Stella's. Good evening, Martin. I hope you're well, mate. See, we can have a laugh. If nothing else, we can have a laugh. There you go. Dabs, if Moyes doesn't make any changes against Wolves, we'll still lose, then I'll be 1,000% Moyes out. Good evening to you, WHU. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Cyber, how are you? Moyes out, he's never going to change. Well, Julie, I'm glad you made it. Have you got David on as well? Get Wiggy on here. I want to have a chat with him. Black Country, good evening to you. Okay, see what happens when I actually turn up on time. You lot get shocked. I bet half of you have fainted. Damien, how are you, mate? Good night, all hammers. Still, how are you, mate? I'm very well. I hope you're well as well, mate. Thank you for joining. Bill, how are you? Thank you for joining. Martin, still the voice. Well, I'll try to be. And I've got a little, when I get there, let's see what you guys think. Darren, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Bronson Lovejoy. What a name. Bronson Lovejoy. My sound was down. You're not catching me out like that. Schriegel, how are you, mate? I hope you're well. Good evening, Steve. Evening, still. I'm like every other West Ham fan at the moment, well pissed off. How the hell does Kufa, etc., go and out of form Bowen getting the side, playing new player? Mate, last season you were complaining about not having a striker. Now you're complaining about. No, I'm kidding. You're all correct, of course. This is what sort of worries us at the moment. But I will get to that, and I will talk about the whole situation later on. Morning to you, Tony and Rhonda. Good evening. Thanks for joining. Have we heard anything from the attack-minded coach Warburton? What a good question. I'm guessing he's in there. He must be having a say in what goes on. That's a really good point. Didn't even think of it from that perspective, but good point. Good evening to you, House Cody, Hammer from Liverpool. Thank you for joining, mate. Really much appreciated. Neil, good evening to you as well. I've always backed Moyes, but I'm starting to lose patience with him now. I think a lot of people are saying much the same thing. Hello, Kevin. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining. Hello to you, Hugh. Good evening to you as well. Let's get some people in that I haven't said hello to yet. Robert, why do people think just because we've spent 180 million that we have a right to win games? Well, I think it goes a little bit beyond that. I agree with that statement. We don't have a right. Just because you spend a lot of money doesn't mean you buy yourself a win. Daniela, I hope you're well. I'm very well, thank you. You were right in doing the show today, but I'm going to give football a rest due to a lot of the over the top. Well, don't go just yet, because this show is not about going over the top. I know, other people do that, and then all fair play to them, up to them. People approach this in whatever way they want, but don't leave just yet, because there'll be some reasoned argument here. Good evening to you, Lewis. Never called for a manager to go. Normally I can see a manager trying new things. Bilic tried a number of different tactics to avoid the slump. Moyes is sticking with what he knows and hoping for the better. Yeah, that's a good point, Steve. And I'm going to talk about that as well. I hope you're well, mate. Thank you for joining as well. Let's scroll down. Who else do we have? Stephen Tan, how are you, mate? Good evening from Doddinghurst, Brentwood. Not as far as some people, mate, but welcome to you. I hope you're well, Stephen. Thanks for joining, mate. Galispera to you, Sarif. I hope you're well. What a shambles West Ham have become. Time is ticking for Moyes. Yeah. Good evening to you, Devon. I'm Moyes in, but I think if he don't get 6 points from the next two games, it could be time for a change at the helm. Victor, how are you, mate? Thank you for joining. Damien, for me, our formation needs to change, and if Moyes is stubborn to change players, that needs shaking up. Put in the signings to compete for their positions. It's not just about putting other players in. You're absolutely right. You also got to see a bit of a change in formation as well. I'm going to cover all that. Rhonda and Tony, 4 so-called winnable games in October. God help us if we can't win at least 3 of them. It will be problematic. Daniela again. Can the Moyes outers please say who you want to replace him? Like to know if you're on planet Earth. House Cody. All this hate for Moyes does my head in. Look, what he had done for us over the last few years, no one complained. Then if we did get rid, who would we get? Another Pellegrini. What a good point. And again, the sort of stuff that I'm going to mention. Andrew, how are you, mate? I'm very well. Thank you for joining. Good evening, Mr. Cox. How are you? Thank you for joining. Paul, how are you? Chris Biggs. All the names are in tonight. I like that. Moyes, I'll have to do Tuesday nights more often. Moyes tactics have hit a wall, and I thought the problem was a small squad. Kent, good evening to you. Next 3 league games will decide Moyes' future. I think 6 points minimum are needed. I'm going to talk about the fixtures because we've got a few changes, haven't we? Jim, Forest have won 1 game. Everton have won 1. Are we really the worst team in the league? No, we're not. We're not. Absolutely not. Look, I'll take this opportunity now because I never do it early enough. If you're new to the channel, do hit the like button and the subscribe button. And if you really care to hear me again, hit the bell notification to notify you when I'm next on. Really appreciated if you do that. Good evening to you, Jerry. I hope you're well, mate. Black Country. I said give Moyes 4 more games after the Everton display. I've changed my mind. Time for a change. Well, we're going to talk about that later on. Adam, it takes time for a team to gel, but too many players out of form and not playing well, it will come together. Have faith. It will come together. Have faith. And I think a lot of us do, but a lot of us are getting nervous. And I won't lie to you, I'm getting nervous too. Committee of Small Garden Birds and Voles. YouTube channels and social media have ruined football. all squealing gusset dampeners, hysterically bleating entitled, whining tripe, like a bunch of sport kiddies screaming for more custard boring. Do you know what? Amongst that, the jokey sort of way you put that, I agree with you. I think all social media, not just YouTube, but all our social media that happens. Look what happens in the transfer window. We want the information. We want it now. We can't wait. We can't wait. We need to know. We need to know yesterday. We need to know before the manager knows who we're about to sign. And it does get a little bit boring sometimes. And yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, I've got no problem in disputing, debating, having a conversation about what goes on. But I'm not going to pick on other channels. It's not right for me to do so because each to their own. But well, I'll get to that later. Keith, I must be the only person not panicking yet. I'm not jittery. We've seen the Amas start worse and play worse. Not happy, but not in panic mode. I'm confident we'll turn it around. Chris, if spending money is not to win, then why did they spend it in the first place? People are strange. It's not so much how much we spend, etc., because we knew we needed to replace players. We had no choice. We had 5-6 players leaving because of contracts and all that sort of stuff. So there was no choice in the matter. We had to spend money. It's strange, though. Moyes did kind of allude to he didn't think he was going to bring as many in as we did. Anyway, Hammerette, Darren, I agree. Massive unrest in the dressing room. I do believe Moyes could turn around. I don't think there is massive unrest in the dressing room, to be really honest with you. I don't know where that rumor has started from, but I'm not so sure that there is massive unrest at the moment. I think maybe 1 or 2 players are getting a bit restless, but I don't think that it's gone, it's spread throughout the whole team. I might be wrong. AT, good evening to you. We have to start Antonio and Scamacca against Wolves. Dodsey. Still, after this video, direct the people to Claret and Booze blog from Nick for 2 hours ago. Such passion on his views that both me and you know. Okay. Chris, same problems that have made Leicester stuck at the bottom facing West Ham. Dinosaur managers. Well, we were calling out for Brendan Rodgers to be our manager only recently. So all of a sudden, I'm not saying that you're wrong, Chris, but isn't it strange how we view certain managers? Brendan Rodgers came in all gleaming, etc., and everyone thought, what a fantastic move from Leicester to get Brendan Rodgers in. And now, it's just it's odd how we view managers at times. Ian, good evening to you. 18th in possession and 19th in sprints. How can we improve? We can improve, but those stats are very troubling and very poor, without a doubt. Hammerette, I see the biggest annoyance for the new signings is not being picked over poor, bang out of form players. Think Rice is also back in this too, and this is causing a lack of respect towards Moyes. Yeah, good point. Max, good evening to you, mate. Thank you for joining. Good evening, Funky T. Moyes has played 6 different formations this season. That may surprise you, but it's true. I think he is finding what formation works. And that is actually true, Funky T. You're absolutely correct there. He has actually changed. He's played 5 at the back. He's played 3 at the back. He's played 4 at the back. He's tried to play a variation of formations. The only thing though is what games is he making those formation changes? Is he dabbling in the Europa Conference and sticking to a rigid formation in the Premier League and then maybe not using the right players? And that's what another thing I'm going to talk about. Which players is he using for which games, and are they correct to do? Is he correct to be doing so? Patrick, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're well. Look, I'll tell you what. Let's stop there for a minute. Let's get into all the other news for a moment, because it probably won't take long, and then we can devote the rest of this show to the whole issue about David Moyes and what's going on and so on. So why don't we start with the academy first? Right. So just briefly, because I think it's important to recognise it, the Women's League kicked off at the weekend. We got a win. We beat Everton. We grabbed a winner. We were victorious in our first match of the 2022-23 league. And in a game that lacked clear chances, Lisa Evans made sure she took her chance when it came, heading the only goal of a tightly contested game against Everton at Chigwell. Paul Konchesky named an attacking lineup for his first competitive match, and he gave 5 new signings their debuts. 5 out of 9. What a difference, eh? I mean, you could actually look at it and go, wow. But on a serious note, I know there's all this talk about betting players in, etc., etc. What Konchesky did, he just said, "You're all good enough. That's why I've signed you." 5 out of 9 that played. So well done. I think that's fantastic, and I hope the women's team do well this season. But let's move on to the under 21s, and it's not been that easy a season for them so far. They did finally get off. They got a point again in their last league game against Man United, one I'm going to talk about in a moment. But it all sort of, I'm trying to work out what's happened to the under 23s, because under Halashko a season and a half ago, they were banging the goals in. They were doing really well, etc. Halachko left midway through last season for Mark Robson to join, and Mark Robson joined at a good time. They were on a high, the under 21s, and they kept going. They finished second in their under 23 league as it was back then. But something's happened with regards to the momentum. Robson, he's an experienced coach, and I'm not suggesting that he's done anything wrong, but there have been changes. The under 23s have become the under 21s now. A number of players have moved on. They've gone out on loan to get proper footballing time, proper game experience, etc. But we played a team. We played Sparta Prague last week, early last week. We're in a group of 5 teams from across Europe. Monaco, Sparta Prague, a few others, etc. And we found it really tough because the Sparta Prague team last Tuesday, we got Sparta Prague, PSV, Feyenoord, Monaco, and West Ham. And the team that we played last week apparently play a reserve team football. So their under 21s or under 23s or whatever you want to call them seem to get proper game time. And I just wonder whether that's the reason why Mark Robson said that we found it difficult. Their physicality found it difficult. Well, if you're playing with senior players in reserve team football, you're likely to get that experience. And there are a lot of people have alluded to this and suggested that we ought to do away with under 21 football and we should be playing reserve team football as we used to do, because that will give the young players a lot better experience in football. And I wonder, after playing Sparta Prague and then Coach Mark Robson suggesting that we couldn't compete with their physicality, whether there's a lot to be said about that. Look, we didn't play well. We were sort of out-muscled, out-maneuvered. This was the team against Sparta Prague. A lot of names that you're all getting used to. Heggie in goal, Regan Clayton, a very well thought of left back, Pierre Ekwar, etc., etc. And we did okay, but when you're sort of out-muscled, outplayed, etc., it must put a bit of a dampener on things. And then losing 1-0 to a physical team, I guess it was a learning curve for them. We went into our next game, which was against Man United at the weekend, and only one change was made, with Barma being out on a red card, having missed this game, and Scarles came in his place. But otherwise, the team didn't change, and we did an awful lot better. It's the first point that we've got in the under 21s league this season. We've fallen away a bit. This was our 6th game of the season. Kamari Swire got his 3rd goal of the season. We've got some talent there, but I just wonder, as I've said already, whether playing under 21s football against other under 21 players does these players any good, and whether the league should look at this and maybe bring back reserve team football in some manner. Right, the under 18s otherwise are having a whirl of a time at the moment. They are banging the goals in for fun. They beat Aston Villa 6-3 at the weekend. They actually went 2-0 down. That must have got the youngsters a bit angry, because they came back and they hit Villa for 6 goals to 3. They're doing extremely well. They've won every game that they've played so far this season. And they're not just winning them, they're actually smashing other teams. They're winning like by 4 goals, 5 goals, etc. So well done to them. We've wished them all the best for the rest of this season. Right. I'm going to go straight into player watch, and then I'm going to talk about, well, as you know, about David Moyes. So let's do that bit next before we go into any of the other chat. So there are a number of players updates that I need to make you aware of. You may already be aware of them anyway. Naif Aguerd apparently is reported to be back in the gym. Well, we've seen photos of him. He put on his Instagram or whatever he goes on. He's back in the gym, and there's speculation that he could be back in action before the World Cup, and that would be fantastic news for West Ham. Moyes has alluded to, I think he's kind of alluded to his plans not working out quite as well as he hoped because he doesn't have a Gerd in there. And I just wonder what he means by that. I've got a suspicion that he's desperate to play three at the back with an attacking five and then 1-1 or something like that. And a Gerd could be the final piece of the jigsaw, which is hindering him from doing so. So Aguerd could be back, and he could be back sooner rather than later. Ben Johnson, it doesn't look like he'll be back in action until after the internationals. He's still suffering from a hamstring injury. But also there's a concern about Johnson and his contracts. And there's been news in the last couple of days about Ben Johnson not yet agreeing to a new contract. Look, there isn't as much concern as people make out because we triggered the 2-year extension on his contract last season. So he's contracted until 2024 anyway. And there's plenty of time to negotiate a contract with him. Moyes knows his value. He knows he's a good utility player. And I don't think that there's a lot of people saying that, he's going to be the next Sonny Perkins. He'll leave on a free, etc. We've got him for 2 more seasons. So I don't think there's anything to panic about there. But in terms of his injury, looks like he'll be back after the international break. Moyes explained during the week Harrison Ashby's absence. And again, another player that there's an awful lot of speculation about. People are suggesting that he's not made himself available to play. He's upset that he didn't get his transfer in the summer transfer window, etc., etc. Well, Moyes explained that the player has been suffering an injury, a groin injury, and had he been available, he would have made played in the game against Silkeborg last Thursday. So let's not always get carried away with what's going out there. Do you remember my old saying? I haven't said it for quite a while, but don't believe everything you hear. Don't believe everything you read. And I think this might be the case with Ashby. As soon as the transfer window shut, Ashby put us, I don't know, Instagram or something. He put his initials and the number 50, which is his squad number, to suggest that he was happy to still be at West Ham. So I think something will happen with Ashby. I think he's another player that Moyes thinks quite a lot of. And it's good that Moyes came out and finally said something, because there was a hell of a lot of speculation going on about what's happened to him and so on. Right, some players out on loan. And we read last week that Nikola Vlasic is set to cut short his loan spell at Torino. No, he's not coming back. Apparently, Italian newspapers are suggesting that he's about to move to Torino on a permanent basis. And Torino are looking to perhaps initiate that at the next transfer window in January. Now, is that true? I don't know. Torino director Davide Vagnati talked about him being one of the players who combines good technical and physical qualities. He said about West Ham paying a lot of money for him, but things didn't work out in England. And it looks like they might be readying a bid. Look, we've agreed a loan to buy option in his loan to Torino, and apparently the fee is around £12 million. I know what a lot of people are saying at the moment. A lot of people are saying, "My goodness, see, if he's played in his right position, etc., then look what he can do." And they may be right, because when I talk about David Moyes later on, his tactics and so on, I'm going to talk about, well, not in depth, but I'm going to talk about players who haven't fitted into Moyes' system. And one could argue Vlasic is one of them. Vlasic has always said, "I'm better playing down the middle," and now he's doing it for Torino. He played at the weekend against Sassuolo, Scamacca's old team, and they lost 1-0 at home to them. Next up is Arthur, good old King Arthur. Besiktas, and I still can't pronounce it, played Istanbulspor, and they drew 2-2. And Arthur's doing all right. You know, he's been in every team so far since his loan spell out to Turkey. But I will argue that perhaps he's found his level. But good on him. I'm glad he's doing well. Now, for some youngsters who are out on loan, Armstrong Okoflex, he's out on loan at Swansea. He made a very late substitution. He came on for Swansea in the 3-0 win over Hull at the weekend, hoping that he'll get a bit more game time. And we hope so too. I really want to see what he's capable of doing, especially in the Championship. Odubeko, Mipo Odubeko was out on loan at Port Vale this season, and he came on as a 72-minute substitute in the 2-1 win over Shrewsbury Town at the weekend. Thierry Neves, he was in the team for Newport. He played the whole 90 minutes against Barrow, where they lost 2-0. Nathan Trott has made his first league start. He's already played once for Visual in a cup competition, but he made his league start at the weekend where he was involved. The Visual and Hobro are Danish teams in Division 2 of the Danish league, and he kept a clean sheet. So well done to him. Really happy for him as well. Look, there are going to be a number of players out on there are going to be a number of players out on international duty over the next couple of weeks. We've heard already about Declan being given time off today from training, and there's concerns. I don't know where this story's appeared from, but apparently there are great concerns over Declan and the amount of games he's played, etc., and over his workload. Now, I'm kind of a bit confused by this. Now, we know Declan has played a lot of games, but there are 2 games that he hasn't played in, which were the 2 games against Viborg where he was not eligible because of suspension. But also, he only played 63 minutes of another Europa Conference game as well. He's played all the games in the Premier League, but I don't know. I just wonder, and I'm speculating now, whether it's more about not so much about his workload, but about the pressure that he's under. When you're winning, when you're a young captain of a team and you're winning games, it's easy, isn't it? It's easy to get through it, etc. The spirits are high and so on. And I just wonder if it's more because we're suffering a little bit in the league at the moment, and that's the bit that might be getting to Declan Rice. He's still a young lad, he doesn't have the backup now of Mark Noble there, etc. So I just wonder if there's something about the pressure that he's under rather than the workload. And also, Roberto Mancini spoke about Scamacca. And now I know we're not going to like this, but I wonder if it actually justifies what David Moyes is doing to a certain extent. Because Roberto Mancini, he's out. Scamacca is out with the Italian squad at the moment. He said Mancini has spoken to Scamacca about his time in the Premier League, and he suggested it could be another 4 or 5 months before Scamacca is fully up to speed on the Premier League. Mancini, having experienced the league, he knows what it's like. He knows how fast-paced it can be. Now, we don't want to hear that because we want all our players to play right now, don't we? But it's interesting that another manager has come out and someone as qualified as Mancini to suggest that it may take Scamacca another 4 or 5 months to acclimatise to Premier League football. Does that make Moyes right? I'll leave you with that thought. Okay, let's go into the chat before I go into what will be the final part of the show, and that will be to talk about. I'm going to cover very, very briefly the 2 games, but I'm going to talk much, much more about David Moyes, selections, formations, tactics, etc., etc. So let's go into the chat and see what you guys have to say. Let's scroll down. Where were we? Moyes played 6. Yes, I've done that one. WHU, 130 people, 29. Hit that like button, people. Thank you, WHU. Much appreciated. Jerry, is there much difference between Scamacca and Allaire? If there is, I don't see it yet. Not that impressed with Paquetá either. Must give him a chance, though. That's an interesting point because people are starting to say the same thing. But when I talk about David Moyes later on, maybe I'll put all this into a little bit of perspective. Jackie, what's up, mate? I'm very well. How are you? Found out about you. And thank you to Gio and Gonzo for promoting me. I really appreciate that. And Jackie, thank you for joining, mate. And I hope you appreciate you like the show. I think you're great. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Good evening to you, Epic. We were bad before we signed new players. Can't blame it on the players not gelling. There's an element of that, but it can't just be the only thing. Well, anyway, I keep wanting to go ahead of myself. I've got so many notes here that I just want to get through them. Daniela, if we sack Moyes, we can end up with Rodgers. Beware, people. Oh, good point. Would you like Brendan Rodgers as your manager? Patrick, Moyes doesn't know how to play football with a football. Oh, dear. Stephen, Mrs. Tan said, can she have your autograph, and finds it frustrating hearing me shout at the TV. She's welcome. She doesn't want Oh dear. House Cody. Is it all Moyes' fault? Some of the players have to take the blame, so Moyes has to bench them players. Good point. Good afternoon to you, Douglas, or good evening to you, depending on where you are in the world. Thanks for joining, mate. Much appreciated. Good evening to you, Peter. Leicester haven't got 10 million to get rid of Rodgers. 10 mil to get rid of him. Vinay, Moyes' tactic, yeah, they are up shit creek, aren't they? Vinay, Moyes' tactics are Antonio up top, 9 defensive players who hoof to Antonio to score on the break and set pieces. Teams have sussed this out. Cornet and Benny don't get it. They attack, so get dropped. Interesting. Robert, I'm not saying you're wrong. Robert, hands up. Who should we go down? Hands up. Should we go down? Who's going to stop supporting the up? No, of course not. We support them through thick and thin, don't we? And that's the thing. We are West Ham. We us oldies know what it's like to have gotten relegated, not once but twice. And it's not been pleasant. And we support them through thick and thin. But can you imagine going down to we won't get relegated. I know famous last words, but we won't. But can you imagine how empty that stadium will be when fans don't renew their season tickets if we're in the Championship? Aidan, first game City champions, second game Forest newly promoted, and their place at their place very unlucky, and their promotion bounce as well. Yeah, good point. Third game Chelsea, we were cheated. All 3 games, not surprised we lost. Fourth Villa win. You know what? And when you look at it in that perspective, and then you look at, I think we've only had 2 bad games, and I know people are going to go, not so. Look at last season, and I've seen all the stats, and I've seen the stuff that people churn out, about we haven't won, we've only won 2 games in the last 20 or whatever, and I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. I never wanted to do that, but absolutely right. This season alone, we've only played badly twice. And you could argue last season we had other distractions as well. Good evening to you, disabled team. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Good evening, Andrew. If we lose against Wolves or Forest, the Moyes must be ejected. Paul, if Moyes goes, will it be Warburton? He might be standing, but probably not for long, I think. But I'll talk about that later on as well. Darren, Hammerett, there is a big unrest between the players and Moyes. It goes as far back as our second game away to Frankfurt. Shit at the fan after the game in the dressing room. I'm not suggesting that you're wrong, but I'd really love to know where you got that information from. I think that's really intriguing because no one's mentioned that. So it'd be quite interesting to find out where that came from, Darren. Happy Hammer, subscribe to get new content as it comes out and like the channel. Thank you. Robert, even with the money spent, we are still playing catch up. We are now, well, after dropping so many points, without a doubt. Peter, if there is unrest in the dressing room, it's down to the board and their broken promises regarding improved contracts. I'm not so sure, Peter, about that, because Moyes did say he's in charge of negotiating contracts, and he's the one that put a stop on Souček's contract being extended. So I don't know. Patrick, why do you have a Moyes in trouble headline still? Because I think that's what a lot of people are thinking. I think people are thinking that Moyes is in trouble. I think people are suggesting that his time is up, his days are numbered, and I think a lot of people are expecting David Moyes to be sacked during the international break. Ryan, good evening to you. Doesn't help when all the new players can't speak English. Doesn't do much for team being on the same page. It's a good point. It was interesting, wasn't it? The way the players being translated to. I think Ogbonna was translating to. Who was he translating to? Was it Paquetá or not Paquetá? One of the other players, etc. Chris Nix, good evening to you. I still rate Brendan Rodgers. See, some people do. Andrew, you may have been calling for Brendan Rodgers. I do not think he is good enough. I haven't been, but I know a lot of fans used to say they'd like Rodgers in. Ultra, good evening to you. Moyes hasn't learned anything since his days at Everton. The mistakes he was making there are the same mistakes he is making now. Anthony, Rice, Paquetá look very unhappy. Skamaka could kill on his face. So all is not rosy in the garden. Without a doubt, we're losing games. Players are not going to be happy if we're losing games, without a shadow of a doubt. Bernie, good evening to you, mate. In true style, we all wanted new players into our team. We also want these players so that we play a different system. We cannot just play the same way when we are losing a game. 100% agree. Vinay, Ryan Porteous, they probably can't understand Moyes too. He said, stay back and hoof to Antonio. Hugh Garrison. I think we will end up 6th or 7th place at the end of the season. Come on, think positive. Great point, mate, because, there are a lot of games to play, a lot of twists and turns to happen. Let's remember last season, we started off extremely well and tailed off at the end of the season. Who's to say that this season, we're all right, we've started badly and we can't build, and then maybe come back from the international break and really go for it? Who's to say that won't happen? And I wonder what people will be saying then if we do that. Imagine if the next time we've got a big schedule coming up. Imagine if we do that and we start really sort of hitting the ground finally and start really sort of beating teams and accumulating points and working our way up the league. What will people then say? Will they still say Moyes out if that happens? Peter. In Dave Moyes, we must trust because they will not get a top 5 or 6 Premier League Premier manager. It's not their style to spend that sort of money. But the irony, though, Peter, we've spent a lot of money. This is it. Are we the 3rd highest spenders in the league? And this is. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but in my mind, I'm not so sure that stands anymore because we have spent money. We've spent a substantial amount of money in the transfer window this summer. And yes, I know we needed players, but Moyes could have gone out and bought £10 million players, £15 million players, and not gone for the big players that he wanted, the £35 million players, etc. He could have said, sod it, I just need a squad. I'll just buy this £10 million player here, this £5 million player there. They have backed him. They have backed him. James, if Moyes has lost the dressing room, then I'm sorry, he has to go. Everyone knows it's just down the tunnel on the right. Keith, make sure you hit that. Thank you, much appreciated. Howard, bloody hell, still started on time. Apologies for my tiredness. That's all right, Howard, you're excused. Amaret. Rice's body language against Everton and Souček in particular was that of a very frustrated and fed up young player who knows we have better players being wasted. Best informed players play each game. I agree. Still get Moyes on the show. He'd rip me to shreds. I'm an amateur. He would, everything I will say, he'll rip me to shreds. I'd rather not go there. Max, I get why people want to see both Scamacca and Antonio as a striker partnership, but what will it take, will we take out to have those two up front from attacking players? See, I actually don't think, because they're very, very different players, I'm not so sure that they would be a good match. And you're absolutely right, Max. It would mean something will have to give. It will mean one of our attacking players, one of our midfielders, etc., will have to drop out. Who would you drop out? But we'll get to that in a minute. But I agree with you, Matt. I'm not so sure. People are crying out for two up front. You can play two up front. It doesn't necessarily have to be Antonio and Scamacca. It can be another combination. Schmeigel, Moyes should start playing the women instead. Sean, good evening to you. Can't we play two up front if we're can't play two up front if we're losing? I think Moyes has a couple of games to turn it around. He has been given the vote of confidence. That is a bad sign. Well, that can be sometimes. Kent, I think it can't be understated that massive hole losing Stuart Pearce for team morale and the loss of Noble in the dressing room and as a bridge between the dressing room and the players. So really, really good point. You know, there were two big characters, and Declan even talked about Fredericks. I know Fredericks didn't play much, but apparently behind the scenes, Fredericks was also a good character to have around. And it's true. Maybe we might have the leaders on the pitch with the likes of Declan, etc. Maybe we've lost the leaders off the pitch, and that is a really good point. Stuart Pearce must have been a massive inspiration to them. And of course, Mark Noble. You know, I just wonder, I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Noble came back in some quiet capacity to be in or around that changing room. I know he's been off, enjoying himself, etc. But I just wonder if it might not be long before he's called in some unofficial capacity in some way. Harry, good evening to you. How many of the new players will put in a transfer request in January? That won't happen. I don't think I think players will be unhappy if they continue not to be picked. I think there will be a little bit of unrest. I don't think from what I'm hearing from some people here in the chat that he's lost the dressing room already. I really want to know, how that's why people believe that. It might be true. I don't know. But no, handing in requests in January? No, I'm not so sure. Gary, he may have changed formations, but they were still defensive and negative. Yeah, well, yes, I agree. Right, I'll tell you what. Why don't we stop there? Just another bit of news, because we've got a big schedule coming up after the international break, and we've got 9 games in October. It is going to be busy. And on the 1st of October, with the train strike now looming, we've got Wolves. Oh, apparently it's been confirmed with the train strike on. We've got Wolves on the 1st of October at home, kick-off at 5:30. And then we're away to Anderlecht on the 6th of October with a kick-off at a local kick-off here at 5:45. And then, of course, we've got the home game against Fulham on the 9th of October, kick-off at 2 o'clock. That's a Sunday. And then we got the home game to Anderlecht on the 13th of October with an 8 p.m. kick-off, followed up by Southampton on Sunday the 16th away at St. Mary's with a 2 p.m. kickoff. And then, of course, we've got Liverpool away on the Wednesday the 19th with a 7:30 kickoff. Let me stop there just for a moment because we go back. The Wolves game, it's at home. We do need to get something from that, without a shadow of a doubt. I think it's vital that we don't slip up there. And then, Anderlecht will sort itself out. Anderlecht are not the team that they used to be. I'm sure David Moyes will want to wrap things up in Europe, and try and get a win out there, get the 3 points to further cement our position in the Europa Conference table. But he can't do that. By sacrificing what happens either side of that game. Wolves game is important. It's absolutely crucial that we get something from that. And we're lucky. We got 2 home games that sandwich around the Anderlecht game. So the Fulham game is also absolutely vital to get something from. And you know what? And I know I'm going to say it, and I know I'm going to shoot myself in the foot, but they are winnable games, and we should be able to actually win all 3 of those games. And then next up, and then we got Anderlecht at home. Let's see what they're like away, because I think, again, another winnable game. The first banana skin, Southampton. A lot of people expect us to win that, but how well have we done at St. Mary's over the past few years? Some wins, some losses, some draws, etc. So that could be a potential banana skin. And then we come. But what we need from those few games, we need at least at the very, very least, from Wolves, Fulham, and Southampton, at the very least, we need 5 points. At the very least, we need to win one, and at the very least, draw the other 2. Because, of course, we go away to Liverpool. Who knows? It might be our season. This might be the season where we keep losing to one team and then beating the teams that we shouldn't be losing to, that we shouldn't be winning against, sorry. So Liverpool away, that's going to be a tough one. And then, of course, Bournemouth away, another team that's just been promoted. That's got to be another winnable game. It's got to be. Silkeborg at home, I think they were excellent, Silkeborg, and I think they were very, very unlucky not to get any points from us in the game that we played against them last week. And then, of course, at Old Trafford, a tough one. They're beginning to get form, Man United. So do we expect anything from those games? I guess we'd want at least a draw from Bournemouth, even if we don't get anything from Liverpool or Man United. Then we go into November, and then we've got the final run before. I think this is the final run before the World Cup kicks off. And then we've got FCSB. We've seen what they're like. I think that, we can beat them even though it's away from home. I think, but by that time, I think we would have wrapped up the Europa Conference League. Then at home to Crystal Palace, another potential banana skin. They're the sort of team that we should beat with aplomb, but sometimes just don't do it for whatever reason. And then we got the home game, the League Cup against Blackburn. And then, of course, we got Leicester. So out of all those, let's go right back again. So Wolves, look, at the very least, a draw, but we should be looking for a win. Fulham, we should be looking for a win there. So that should be a minimum of 4 points. Southampton, banana skin. Would you be happy with a point from there? I think currently, the way we are, I would say probably yes. Liverpool, do you write that one off, or do you try and go for that one? Let's say, for argument's sake, as we always do, we'll lose up there. But Bournemouth, again, we should be going for a win. They're not doing too well. We should be looking at a win there. So that should give us 8 points at least. And then Man United, maybe if we scrape a draw, that might be 9 points. And then Palace, we should be winning that. And Leicester, we should be winning that. Out of those games that are coming up in the league, we should be aiming for at least 15 odd points. If we did win those games and draw the games that I've suggested, then that might not look too bad overall. But we've got to win them, and changes have got to happen, I guess. And that's the bit I'm going to go into now. And we're going to talk about a tiny bit about the games, but a lot more about David Moyes, his tactics, his approach, and so on. So, look, let's be really honest. The game last week against Silkeborg, we were lucky to get anything from it, weren't we? I mean, let's be really, really honest. Had we had VAR in place, I'm trying to find the appropriate. There we are. Had we had VAR in that game, I think we could have drawn that game at the best. Look, first of all, the penalty, bit soft. If VAR was there, I'm not suggesting Cornet wasn't pushed. I think there was a touch, without a doubt. Strong enough for him to go over? Perhaps. But then this penalty. Now, I talked about the penalty last week when I did a brief review on the game. And I think people in the chat were saying, oh, no, it's all right, a double hit. It's not. He slipped. His left foot, Lanzini slipped. His left foot hit the ball, which went onto his right foot. It was a double hit. VAR would have seen that. They would have given a free kick to the opposition. So perhaps we got lucky there with regards to that penalty being allowed. Scamacca was a great goal without a shadow of a doubt. And then, of course, the slip up against where Areola literally slipped. If VAR had seen that as well, they would have given that goal, the goal that was disallowed. We were lucky. I think we were extremely lucky to win that game, and I think Silkeborg would have counted themselves unlucky for the second game in the Europa Conference not to get any points on the board, because they were unlucky against Anderlecht as well. Anderlecht got a last-minute penalty against them in their first game of that group stage. It was we got through that, and then of course we went to Everton at the weekend, and I was confident until I saw the lineup. And then I thought, oh dear, and that's where the first concern, I think, came in. Look at the lineup that we had against Silkeborg, and look at the lineup that we had against Everton. And let's start from the top. Areola in goal for one game, Fabianski in goal for another. Can you draw a comparison between those two? Is one better than the other? For me, Areola, even though he slipped and got lucky in the game against Silkeborg, I think would have been a starter for me in the lineup. And I'm going to get to why I think he should be playing in the Premier League in a minute. And then you had Soufal, Dawson, Kehrer, Creswell, Emerson at the back. I was surprised that Emerson didn't get a start in the game against Everton. I thought he played reasonably well as a wing back. And then Lanzini played reasonably well as well. If you remember, I mentioned about Lanzini in the FCSB game and he didn't get involved in it. And then what Moyes did, he put him deeper. He put him as a deep playmaker alongside Declan. And Lanzini looked comfortable there. He looked happy there. When he played against FCSB and played further forward as number 10, it's no longer his game. Lanzini's lost pace. He's not that he had great pace in the first place, but Lanzini has lost that number 10 touch. The injuries have taken their toll, etc. Someone in the chat during the review also suggested the car crash he's had has knocked him a little bit and so on. And he just looked, for some reason, he just looked a lot more comfortable playing as in a deeper lying role and being that sort of deep role playmaker. And maybe that's Lanzini's future rather than being a player that is someone that plays further forward. So Lanzini, I mean, I'm not suggesting Lanzini should have started in the Premier League, but he played a different game. Lucas Paquetá looked a bit more on form. Cornet and Scamacca, they both played really well. Now, for most other managers, when you play really well, you kind of expect to then start in the next game. Doesn't matter whether it's the Premier League or not. What a lot of managers do is they give players in the cup competitions, here's your opportunity to shine. Here's your opportunity to show what you're capable of doing. If you demonstrate that you're doing really well, you might start in the Premier League. But look at then the lineup that we had. We've got players out of form. I know a lot of people criticize Creswell, but I think Creswell's been okay. Soufal, as we know, hasn't been playing well, but at the moment we don't have an alternative. Both our players that would normally play right back, Ben Johnson and Ashby, are both injured. But then you look at Souček, and he's not the only player out of form, without a shadow of a doubt. Jared Bowen, wonderful player, but woefully out of form at the moment, without a shadow of a doubt. Pablo Fornals, another player I feel sorry for. Pablo Fornals has been played. He's become Moyes' utility player, which is unfair on that player because he came in as a number 10. He came as a central midfielder. Pablo Fornals is being asked to play as a wing back, left-sided midfielder, etc., etc., and he's been struggling. He has definitely been struggling. And then you have Antonio isolated up top, and it's really interesting again. When Antonio plays well, I mentioned this again a few weeks ago. When Antonio plays well, it's because the ball is laid out to him wide, but not so deep into the opposition's half where he doesn't have any room to run. He just goes into the to the corner flag. It's when he picks up the ball just inside the opposition's half, and then he can turn and he can run at defenders. But unfortunately, what did we do against Everton? He was isolated up top, and the balls have been just lumped up to him. And people have said that in the chat already. About that. Why play a different system for Antonio when it's not the league? And yet when it's in the Premier League, we seem to just hoof it up to him. Why? Why bypass? Look at the midfield that we've got. Even though the likes of Fornals and Bowen and Souček have not been in form, you've got some talented footballers there. Why are you bypassing them by hoofing the ball up? And I guess that's one of the tactics that needs to be sort of addressed. Look, when I first started doing YouTube shows, etc., I was asked. I went on more than just a podcast, and I was asked then, "Why do you do the show? Why do you put on a show?" And I said, "Well, ego. To be quite honest with you, it's because I think I've got something that people would like to hear, and I've got a big enough ego to come out with what I've got to say." Now, what I've learned is your views are not the only views. Other people, and rightly so, have different views to you, different opinions, and so on. Not one's right, not one's wrong. We're all West Ham fans, and we all want the best for West Ham. But it's our opinions count, but in different ways. Look, Moyes bandwagon at the moment of Moyes out. I said the other day I can't get into that. I'm not a Moyes out at the moment. I'm not, and I can't do it. And I've been trying to sort of ask myself, well, why are you not Moyes out? What are the reasons not to? Well, it goes against my principles to just sort of bandwagon jump, which a lot of people do. And when they do that, it's interesting because I listened to Gio's show the other day, and he said something like, "I'm not Moyes in, I'm not Moyes out, but if he leaves, I'm a bit like, so it's fine." And I guess I'm getting to that point at this moment in time. I'm still more Moyes in than I am Moyes out, and that's because there's a lot of things that we need to see. We need to see Moyes, and a lot of people are saying that he won't change, but this is where different opinions come in. We need to see Moyes have something do something different. We've seen a pattern emerging. Last season we saw it. This season we saw it. Moyes picks a first 11 for cup games. He picks a first 11 for the Premier League. And when you look at that, has he got the right first 11? That's the first question I ask myself. When you've got players like Cornet and Scamacca who are doing the business in the Europa Conference, and what I said a moment ago, if they're doing the business, then surely they should be given the time to demonstrate what they can do in the Premier League. Cornet is a proven Premier League footballer. He played for an awful team last season, scoring 9 goals, etc. So we know he can do it. And when you have players like that, I just wonder if Moyes is looking at some of the players, and this is the first criticism that a lot of fans have, and I get it. I totally understand it, and I totally understand why they're Moyes out, because they look at that lineup, the starting lineup that played against Everton, and they go, Fornals out of form, Bowen out of form, Souček out of form, Soufal out of form, Fabianski can't distribute the ball properly, etc., and he shouldn't be playing, and so on. And that's why it frustrates people, and I get the Moyes out element. I get it. I understand it. But that's the first thing that Moyes has got to decide. If Moyes is going to continue with having a team for the conference, Europa Conference and other cup competitions, and a team for the Premier League, then maybe he needs to really scrutinise carefully who he's picking for each competition and saying to himself, Cornet's doing the business. He deserves a start in the lineup, in the Premier League lineup. I've just mentioned Fornals a moment ago. I feel really sorry for him. He's out of form because he's being played out of position, and that isn't that why we bought Cornet in, to actually play players in their rightful positions. Let's go through them a little bit more depth, because we've got players now. With almost every part of the team, we've got 2 players. Fabianski, Areola. Look, the reason why I'm pro Areola for the Premier League isn't because he's any better a shot stopper than Fabianski, etc. He does command his 18-yard box better, and his distribution is a lot better. Now, if you're going to insist on playing Antonio as a lone striker in the Premier League, what better way to get balls to him than someone like Areola, who can pinpoint them into just inside the opposition's half? With the greatest of respect, Fabianski's ball distribution is woeful. So there's one reason why Moyes, if Moyes is determined that he's going to stick with a particular team in one competition and a different team in another, there's your argument for Areola. But I know you guys are going to have different opinions. Right. I've said Ben Johnson and I've said Ashby are currently injured at the moment. So fair play. They might both be back in once the international break is over. There's every suggestion that Ben Johnson will be. But if they're not, what do we do about the right back situation? Soufal is having a hard time with it. We know Kehrer can play at right back. But many of you are going to say, well, hang on a minute. He's done really well as a centre back, and he absolutely has done really well. But we know if we need to change it, we know Kehrer can play at right back. And then we go to the left back position. Why did we get Emerson? To be a backup to Cresswell or to be in competition with Cresswell? Like I said, I was really surprised that Emerson didn't start against Everton. Then the midfield, as we all say, Flynn Downs. This was the oddest thing I think of all the things that Moyes did over the past week. Flynn Downs had a great game against FCSB, and then of course we had the game that was postponed, and then we thought we're going to see him against Silkeborg, and he didn't play. And then I said with great enthusiasm, I just wonder he's going to start him against Everton. Maybe he's saved him for Everton. It didn't happen. And that left me more puzzled as to why Flynn Downs didn't play against Silkeborg last Thursday. I couldn't get it. I didn't get it. I couldn't understand it. I was like flummoxed. I'm like, what was the point of that? Souček is out of form. There's no denying it. I know. I back Souček. I think Souček has given us great service. But right now, he's not in form. And many people will say the tail end of last season, he was also not in form. But isn't that why you've gone out and bought other players? And Flynn Downs must be puzzled and going, I was told I was man of the match, or a lot of people suggested I was man of the match against FCSB. I didn't get to play against Silkeborg. Didn't understand that. Maybe I will be playing against Everton. Oh, I'm not playing against Everton either. That puzzled me. And then we have, of course, Jared. We love Jared Bowen for what he's done for West Ham United. He's absolutely a superb player. He's just going through a rough patch. No doubt about it. It's just not happening for him at the moment. But yet again, Maxwell Cornet has demonstrated how good he is for West Ham and how much of a benefit he can be. And Maxwell Cornet can play in the position. If Moyes insists on having a left-footed right-sided attacking player, then Maxwell Cornet fits that bill. He plays there. He's played there. In fact, his stats have suggested he's been as successful in that position as he has been playing either as a striker or playing on the left wing as well. Pablo, I feel extremely sorry for Fornals. I really do. I think Pablo Fornals, I mentioned earlier about Lanzini playing a slightly deeper role, maybe alongside Declan, etc., because Lanzini looked suitable there. I think Fornals can also play that role alongside Declan. Or even if you dare play a three in the middle, Fornals can be part of that three in the middle. We've got Benrahma. I am now beginning to think that it is personal against Benrahma with Moyes, because Benrahma is the player out of all our players that started off really brightly this season, but now he's finding himself to be a bit part player in the Premier League. And then the argument about can these two players play up front together? I don't actually think they can. I think they're so different in style, so different in approach, that I'm not so sure that they would actually complement each other. But if you change your formation, there's no reason why Scamacca can't be as successful, if not more successful, than Antonio in the league. Now, I talked about formations and systems, etc. And we talked in the past about all these players that were no good at West Ham. Kral didn't play. Aguerd didn't play. Anderson didn't play. Moyes couldn't wait to get rid of them. And then, of course, Vlasic, who's killing it at the moment in the Italian league. Are they players who weren't good enough, or did they not fit into David Moyes' system? And this is the next bit about David Moyes. David Moyes said himself about the fact that he needed footballers that were going to come in and change the way we play. He talked about, I need more Pyatt's in the team. I know we need to play a different system. We can't play counter-attacking football, etc., etc., etc. These were his words. These were the words that came out from him. Talking about changing formation, talking about a different style of play, etc. And then what does he go and do? He buys a whole load of new players, and they don't they don't fit into the system. So when we start talking about, I've not seen much from Scamacca, I've not seen much from Paquetá, I don't think Fornals is Premier League standard, etc. Let's not forget, we've had players that we've kind of like been dismissive of, suggesting that they're not good enough. And I kept saying it, and I know Kent is in the chat, and I know he kept saying it. Haller wasn't a shit player. The system didn't suit him. Now, one could absolutely argue, and rightly so, when Moyes came back for the second time, he needed to change the way we played because of those stats. We weren't running enough, etc., etc. And he needed players that were going to be grafters. And that was right for that time. We needed grafters. We needed players to come in and really fight for the cause, etc. We couldn't do with players who were like flair players and so on and so forth, like the Andersons, like the Hallers, etc. Moyes was never going to change his system to accommodate these players. And then you look at the likes of Kral, who never got a look in. You look at Vlasic, every time he came on for his cameo roles, he was always played out wide. But is that what's going to happen with the new players? So already some fans are beginning to say, oh, haven't seen much from Scamacca. What was the comment earlier on someone suggested? What's the difference between Scamacca and Haller? Don't see much difference between the two of them. I just wonder if that's more about the system that's being played rather than the players themselves. If they're being asked to play in a rigid formation, you're not necessarily going to get the best out of them. And that's the worrying thing. I've already mentioned Fornals. Fornals will be much better off as a deep line playmaker in the middle of the park, etc. Assisting Declan, playing football. He's a technically gifted footballer. Declan would relish playing alongside Lanzini or Fornals or even Flynn Downs or even a combination of all of them. Paquetá, I've said this when we were looking to buy him, and then when I did a review on him when we did buy him, I said when he was at AC Milan, he played in a 4-2-3-1 system. It didn't suit him. He was lost, completely lost. He had the worst time, and I'm worried, really worried, that if we stick to the rigid system that Moyes has got, Paquetá is going to look like a wasted amount of money. However, when he went to Lyon, and I know people are going to say French league, not as fast, etc., etc. Put that to one side for a minute. It's the formation that was changed by the Lyon manager that got the best out of Paquetá. Paquetá plays best in a 4-3-3 formation. And I just wonder if we changed it, or if Moyes changed it, not us, if Moyes changed it to accommodate the players, then I wonder how much better Paquetá would look. And the same goes for Scamacca. Scamacca cannot do the job that Antonio does. There's no way. They're not the same kind of player. You're not going to get Scamacca running out, out on the wings, etc., picking the ball up and so on, the long balls and all that sort of stuff. You play Scamacca in a 4-3-3 or a 2 up front, whoever that may be, maybe a Paquetá. Maybe Paquetá can play alongside Scamacca as the front 2. Paquetá just behind him, and then have a 3 behind, or whatever the formation will be. I wonder again what different type of player you'll see. When we look at Antonio and we see what we can do, and there's no denying he is the best at doing what he does. But David Moyes, I went quiet there, didn't I? David Moyes has said we need to change the way we play. We need to change our system. We've been found out. We can't play counter-attacking football anymore, etc., etc. We need to play another way. He's bought the players. He now needs to have the courage of his convictions and play a different way. So the best team at the moment, if we're all sort of honest, and if we wanted to sort of like be the manager for the day, is probably this. I haven't mentioned, but let me go back to that, because there is another element here which I think has been hugely missing. And I wonder if this is what Moyes alluded to when he talked about Aguerd being like sort of can't wait for him to come back, etc. I just wonder if David Moyes, I said earlier on in the show, wants to play three at the back. Now, he can play three at the back, but it would mean having Creswell as part of the three. And he does all right. Can't deny Creswell does not too bad when he plays three at the back. But now that Dawson and Ogbonna are slowly coming back to fitness, but not quite there yet, and Aguerd will be back to fitness, but again, won't be quite for some time. I wonder how much of this jigsaw is missing for Moyes. And maybe that's disrupted his thinking altogether about how the team should play. Right, let's go back to being manager for a moment. Now, you could argue this. You could argue that this isn't necessarily the best team as it stands. But if many of you had a choice, how many of you would play this first 11? Kerr out on the right, gets rid of the problem that we got with Soufal. Dawson in. Yeah, I know it's taken a bit of time to get back to fitness again, but Dawson alongside Zuma could be quite good, quite strong. That's nothing against Kerr, because I think Kerr has been excellent for us since he's joined. How many would like to see Emerson start on the left rather than Creswell to give a little bit of pace as well on the left side? And then utilise Paquetá and Downs alongside Declan, or you can put Fornals in there, or you can put Lanzini in there, if not Downs or whatever, but a three in the middle to control that midfield, and then three attacking players playing two players playing a lot closer to Scamacca and giving him the support that he needs to get the best out of him. Benrahma is on form, but he's getting dropped. Cornet is on form and he's not getting picked. Right. Let me summarize, because I've talked an awful lot. In summary, I've talked about the players he's picking. At the moment, if he's really insistent on playing a different team in the Premier League to the cup competitions, then perhaps he ought to consider which of those 11 players it should be, rather than ones that we saw. As I said, when the lineup was announced against Everton, my heart sank a little bit. And I looked at it and I went, all right, the only reason why Kerr's playing is because your players aren't fit enough, the Dawsons and the Ogbonnas, etc. So you've got no choice. And the only reason why he's got Paquetá in there is because he just doesn't want Benrahma to play or Cornet to play for whatever odd reason. And when that lineup was announced, my heart sank a little bit. So there you have it. If he wants to have a team of 11 players starting in the Premier League, maybe he ought to consider who those 11 are. And then it's about formation. The formation is absolutely crucial. As someone mentioned in the chat earlier on, he's played a number of different formations, but I just wonder if he's using the right players in those right formations to get the best out of them. So formation-wise, he's got to stop being worried about it. He's got to stop the tactic, formation and tactic of having to sit back. And we've seen it in almost every game. We've not been at the races in the first half of most games, but we then come out when we go 1-0 down and then we're kind of chasing the game. He's got good players. He's got fast players. Cornet's got speed, and players like that. Benrahma's got speed. Benrahma's got skill. Other players have got speed and they've got skill. Scamacca, etc. Imagine letting them loose, to go at other teams. So the formation, I don't care if he plays three at the back. If he plays three at the back, it can't be a five. It can't be, it's got to be an attack-minded three at the back, with a five in the middle or two up front, whatever it may be. Or a 3-4-3 maybe. Have those three players up front to give support to Scamacca. So the formation has got to change. The tactics have got to change. Don't go out there thinking that you might concede a goal. The way we played against Everton at the weekend was woeful. I think I wrote on Facebook around about half an hour in that this was probably the worst yet this season, even worse than Brighton. We were almost afraid to go and attack them. Our players were not getting into it. It just didn't feel right. Players were mispassing, players were out of form, and then I thought, okay, well, fair enough. He did it at half time against Silkeborg last Thursday, where he made changes at half time. He's going to do the same again. And what happened? Waited until the 60th minute to make the changes. So the players that he's picking at the moment, he has got to stop picking his favourites. There's no denying that. The formation, stick to it, but put the players in that can play the formation rather than trying to wedge players in to a formation that they're not comfortable with. And then the tactics, Go for it. No, who's to say that if we don't go for it, we look at other teams and we get envious at times when other teams go against, the lesser teams go against other teams and they get something out of a game. Yes, we've been unlucky in some games. Yes, the Chelsea game was unlucky, and so on and so forth. But we can't keep saying, our luck is running out. Because we've had an awful lot of luck, as I've said in the Europa Conference, when VAR not being there has gone for us. So we can't then complain when VAR is there and goes against us in the Premier League. So he's got to pick the right players. He's got to pick the right formation, the players that fit the formation, rather than the formation trying to wedge players into a formation that doesn't suit them. The tactics, go for it. You never know. Finally, and this has been a long rant, and I do apologize because I'm sure there's loads of comments, because the only comment I'm seeing at the moment was an hour ago on my screen. So I'm sure there's an awful lot of comments here. Finally, why don't we get rid of David Moyes now? What's the problem with getting rid of David Moyes during the international break? Surely that's enough time, isn't it? Well, no. The reason why we shouldn't and won't get rid of David Moyes now is because I think that'll just be more disruption on disruption. Yes, we might have an immediate bounce, a new manager coming in and might win us a game or two, etc. But there's a system here. Let's not forget what Moyes has done, and we've got to give him some credit where credit's due. Before Moyes joined for the second time round, we had no structure in our game plan. We had no structure in our formation. We had no structure in the players we bought in. It was random. Pellegrini went and spent money on a whole load of flair players. Forgot to buy any defenders and stuff like that. Moyes has come in and he's settled that. He's got a scouting system in. We're now buying players that we need in the areas that we're weak in, or we don't have a player in. But Moyes has got to use them. Now that he's got that, Moyes has got to use those players that he's brought in. So he's done all that. He's settled things. Okay, we haven't started well. I know that. And we finished the last season badly. I know that too. But he's settled things. He's got a proper scouting system in. We're now buying players with a mind process. We need a player to play on the left. We need a player up front. We need a player here. We need a player there. Moyes just got to use them now and stop using Fornals as a makeshift left-sided player and stop using, I don't know, other players. Stop going with the Antonio, hoof it up to him, etc., etc. He's got to change all of that. But he's gone about doing that, and it's taken time for the board to allow him to do that. So that's one reason why we don't go and change things now, because another manager will come in, and who's to say the other manager will turn around and go, well, I don't want half these players. I want to change things anyway. Now's not the time to be doing that. Now's not the time to be even more disruptive in a year of transition. Having said that, when we get to the end of this run, October, November, and we go into the World Cup, if we're languishing at the bottom half of the league, suffering, not like comfortable in the middle, but if we're still suffering down the bottom half of the league in the relegation zone or just above it, etc., then hands up. Moyes it'll be time for the board to make the change. And they've got form in that as well. They will not make a change at this time of season. There's no way that they will. They've made a big investment that currently that investment relies on David Moyes. The 170, 180 million pounds that they put into buying players is down to what Moyes is going to do with them. If a manager comes in, it will be during the World Cup if we're still suffering. And then that manager will have the time to be able to look at what's happening. He'll have a month to decide what's happening, what players he wants to keep, what players he needs to bring in, what players will need to leave. And then I think we've got 2 or 3 games before the January window opens after around about Christmas. And then he can go and make those changes in the January window. Bringing a manager in now will be the worst thing to do, If we're still languishing, fine. Absolutely. Bring a manager in when the World Cup starts. I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to go and read your hour's worth of comments. And I can't read them all, so I do apologize. So I'll do my best. I've got a question here. Question for you: How long did we bring Warburton in for? Was there a contract? I don't know, but it's not just short term. Good evening to you, H&O. I'm here as I need therapy to what Moyes is putting me through this season. Change system, play the players, etc. I don't know if I've given you therapy or a massive headache. Dabs. Maybe our big international players going out on international duty that will allow Moyes to spend time to get to know players like Downs and commentary, etc. Maybe so. Maybe so. I don't know. I don't know. Crazy Cole, good evening to you. Moyes doesn't like a big squad, keeps to his favourites, which teams have now worked us out. Just look at our stats, our stance, dog shit. Sit back and defend until we go 1-0 down. He's lost in space. Schmiegel. How about Andre Villas-Boas for West Ham? He has a good record, to be honest. I think he has a higher win percentage than Conte at Spurs. Good shout, good shout. But like I said, when rather than who? Do forgive me because I'm going to have to try and catch up. Hammer it. My thinking is Moyes may be able to turn this round. We need confidence, and out of form players need to be finally dropped so we can build competition for their shirts. Moyes needs to grow a pair also. Absolutely agree. Disabled team. I love to hear about the under 18s. As long as Moyes is the manager, they aren't going to get a look in. Just train them up for other Premier Leagues and might be best, like you lot. Jim, thank you very much. When was that? That was just under an hour ago. I'm 65, been a Hammer since the late 60s. Never been as angry watching them finish last season. Start of this one, I blame Moyes. Thank you for the night. I really do appreciate that. I never asked for that, and I never will. But thank you so much. Who else have we got? Cliff. Moyes won't play Aguerd. He needs gel-in time. Won't see him till well after Christmas. Yeah, you might be right. Dabs. Southgate is very similar to Moyes in that they're both defensive managers. Both somehow should have won silverware recently. Now they're on the downfall. Interesting. Good point. Adam, the problem with football is that it's so stop-start and players fall to the ground for nothing and waste time if their teams are in the lead. It becomes boring and the referee are crap, so it doesn't help. Good point. VAR doesn't help. That does it. Patrick, Jim just gave YouTube £5. I appreciate it. Anthony, with our coaches have worked with Antonio for years. His on-target shooting ratio is about 35%. Can they teach players to cross? What's happened to our crossing? I mean, what's happened to our crossing? Weird. Schmiegel, I would love the Union Berlin manager at West Ham. They're top of the Bundesliga at the moment. He has got them playing great football. Lewis, Vlasic and Allaire both embarrassed Moyes. Well, they've gone away and they've proven that they're good footballers, without a doubt. Do forgive me. I know I'm going to be missing a lot of comments, and I do apologise for that. Cliff, best partnership in midfield was Downs and Rice. Rice should have could move forward, look good. Moyes abandoned it as soon as it started, and it's a shame. I don't get the whole thing about why Downs hasn't played. Weird. Alex, good evening to you. 28 points from 79 in the whole of 2022 so far. 1 win in 8 against top 10, 5 clean sheets, 3 against relegated teams, the other 2 against Villa and Wolves. I do not deny the stats. I don't. Ahmed, good evening to you. The sooner Moyes is dispensed with, the better. If he stays any longer, it will be like the Titanic, too late to turn it around. Is Christmas too late to turn it around? I don't know. I think there's still plenty of games to play. We may not finish in the top 6 or top 7 or whatever, but there's still plenty of games to play even after the World Cup if we keep Moyes until then. Lewis, I think Declan has a lot to say about this current team and what Moyes is doing, but won't and looks frustrated on the pitch. Well, this is the thing. He's captain. He does have access to the manager, so he should be able to have those conversations with him, and talk about, what goes on in tactics, etc. Whether he'll be listened to or not is another matter, but he should be able to have that access to him as the captain of the team. Kevin, Rice needs to be more demanding now. He is captain instead of just raising his arm. That's a really good point. And I just wonder, I said earlier about Declan being given time off from training with the England squad today because of his workload. I just do wonder, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but if being captain for this team that are not doing well, if it's kind of getting to him a little bit. Because like I said earlier on in the show, when you're doing well and captain, that's all great, fine and dandy. You're happy, etc. But Declan is throwing his arms in the air quite a bit at the moment, and he might be frustrated. And I'll tell you what, we carry on this way, and there will be no doubt at all that he will leave at the end of this season. Let's scroll down a little bit. Do forgive me for missing some of your comments. Adam, does anyone think the Premier League needs to get ex-players on VAR and need to sort it for next year, as VAR now is a laugh? They don't know football properly and their decisions are so awful. I said that. I think we should get ex-footballers on and at least have those conversations with two people on, an ex-ref and an ex-footballer, have those debates or whatever. Jonathan, good evening to you. The old pattern has returned, playing okay, but doing nothing with the ball. Then we go a goal down on a soft goal. Then we wake up and start to play. We had this early part of Moyes' reign. Keith, the newbies need trigger time. He cannot get them to bed in unless he plays them. Why can he not see that? That's a really good point. Balong, good evening to you. Do you think there is a clique in the team? The old guard don't seem welcoming to the new players. Antonio might be frosted to Scamacca, but that's his problem to sort out. Because now he's got competition, and rightly so. And that's the way a team should run. So yeah, one or two players may have had their noses out of joint, put out of joint, but that should make them play even better, to keep their places. Hammerette. I have to believe Moyes can change things up. This is still pretty much the same side that got us so far last season. I back Moyes and all the team for now. Conan. I'm worried that we'll sack Moyes, have our best players nicked in January and do a chart. What a good point. Imagine that. Imagine sacking Moyes now, or sacking Moyes even when I suggested, if we're still languishing, and then teams come in and start cherry picking. Imagine Declan, Chelsea coming in January window. We're in turmoil. Easy picking. Good point. Let's scroll down a bit. Pat Holland fan, Rice is definitely a captain leader. Yes, he is. But I do get the point about him, sort of waving his arms in the air, etc. He needs to just calm down a little bit, and it isn't going well. But that is when you rely on your captain to start coming in and leading the way forward. Graham, should Noble come back in the dressing room to come? Mentioned that earlier. Totally agree. Jonathan, and we also play hoofball or passing down the wings, missing out our attacking players like Scamacca and Paquetá, and then lobbing it across the box. Poor, might I add. I don't like it, and I agree. I absolutely agree with you. Let's scroll down a little bit more. So do apologise for not getting all your comments in. Dodsey, 3 players to change right now. Thoughts, Areola, Downs and Cornet. I would go further. As I said, this is a team that for me, this is the team that I think needs to be considered at the moment. I think Areola should start. You've said that as well. Downs possibly. And if not Downs, then put Fornals there. And then Cornet. Absolutely agree. And I'll bring Benny back. Look, Bowen, we love him, but he's not on form. Antonio, every time Antonio plays in the team, it's what people have said. Hoof it up, hope for the best. Get rid of that style of football. Look at the players that we got there. The best passer of the ball last season in any English league, Flynn Downs. Declan, we know what he can do with the ball. Paquetá, we need him to be able to pick the ball up and run with it and pass it, etc. Cornet, pace. Benrahma, pace and skill. Scamacca, playing either side, playing in between those two players, would relish it. For me, as it stands at the moment, get Kerrer out on the right if we're worried about Soufal. Get Emerson in. He's got pace as well. I agree with you, mate. I agree. T-Bow, good evening to you. Hey, there are 31 league games to go with 6 points off a European place. The team will pull it around. I do feel that they will, but going through the things that I've mentioned about formation, about tactics, etc., about playing the right players in the right positions, and maybe picking a team in the Premier League that's going to do something that's going to be positive. And that team there, for me, looks like a positive team. Excuse me. Who else we got? Lewis. Excuse me, people. Lewis, I was Moyes in until the subs on Sunday. It showed he won't change. It's always like for like. That's a really good point. Ken, I think it can't be understated the massive hole. Yep, you mentioned that earlier, man. I do actually agree with that. I do. I think they're a big miss. Scarborough, good evening to you. The most important thing for Moyes is getting all the boys mucking in together, running the hard yards from the first minute till the last. The talent will come naturally after work rate. But is Moyes too much about the hard-working players, etc.? What about Paquetá? What about Scamacca? They're not the type of runners. And this is what people questioned in the transfer window. We're getting players in the not Moyes type players, and then the big question: are they Moyes' players? Did he want them in, or did he not want them in? And I know that's been bandied around. I think Moyes was part of the process, without a shadow of a doubt. Schmiegel. The problem is that Moyes doesn't play a system to suit the players. Mentioned that already. He makes the players play his system, which, let's be honest, is not working well at all. Agreed. Good evening to you, Mohammed. I hope you're well. I think Tuchel won't consider the role. I agree. But there is no reason why Pochettino wouldn't jump on it. If he is keen and available now, do you take the gamble despite what Moyes has done? No. I think I've said that. I think we wait. And I know that's going to sound painful, but I think we wait until the World Cup comes, and then we make a decision, or then the board makes a decision. Then if we're still languishing, then they have every right to consider a change of the guard with a new manager coming in. Pochettino, I don't mind. Boas, I think, was another one mentioned. Decent. I think what we need, I think what West Ham fans want, we've got to be careful here. I think what West Ham fans want is an attack-minded manager. I get that. Attack-minded coach, get the best out of the likes of, Paquetá, etc., etc. But we've also got to have a manager. One thing that let's not forget what Pellegrini did. He forgot about the defence. We were, goals. What was the first thing that Moyes did when he came back the second time? He shored up the defence because we were leaking goals left, right, and centre. Having said that, I know we're leaking them now as well. Hammer it. If this was Nobes showing this much frustration towards his teammates, I believe Moyes would take note. Perhaps he doesn't deem Rice with as much knowledge due to age. Well, then don't make him captain. If Declan is not going to have that stance in the team and be able to express his frustration, etc., and berate players like he did with Souček during the game, etc., then if that's the case, if he's not going to be taken seriously, then take the captainship away from him and give it to, I don't know, Ogbonna or Dawson or Zuma or somebody else that people will look up to. I think, Moyes has made him captain, and I think the players should respect. I think the players do respect that, though, to be honest. Patrick, we really want to spend money and get a good manager if we could. Who is your good manager, though, and when? Lee, good evening to you. West Ham will be lucky to finish in the top 15 if they keep playing the way they are. I agree. If we keep playing the way we are, definitely. Ahmed. Estelle, what evidence in the league have you seen since January to suggest we can go on the run you've suggested? It's not so much what evidence I've seen. It's more about whether Moyes will make the changes that I've said. Will he start playing players in the rightful positions? Will he start playing the players who are in form, Cornet, etc.? Scamacca has been scoring goals, albeit in the Europa Conference, but he's been scoring goals. Will he start playing those players in the Premier League? Not only that, will he change the formation and the tactics to suit those players? So no, I agree with you. I've not seen the evidence. It's not been good. If Moyes does make the changes that I think we're all crying out for, then maybe there's that possibility of being able to go on the run that I've suggested. Having said that, mate, if we play the same way and if we play the same players, I'd be worried. Andrew, Moyes has enough credit in the bank at present to stop this slide, but he has to evolve his tactics, drop his favourites who are out of form. Otherwise, he's asking for the sack. Agreed. Harry, would you take Di Canio Noble as number 2 to keep the fans on side? No. No. Noble, yes. Not Di Canio. No. Love him, but no. He's too no. Good evening, Allied. We are a mess everywhere. He's got to go. Victor, are we really surprised that we're struggling still? I've been supporting West Ham for 50 years. This is nothing new. Even under the late, great John Lyle, we had our struggles, more downs than ups. No, we're not surprised. Look, this is not me protecting Moyes. And I think, what I've said seems to be putting me more, if other people were watching this fresh, they'll go, oh, God, you really want Moyes to leave with all the changes you want, etc. But no, we have had our problems, mate, haven't we? We've seen it. We've seen the history of West Ham. I think and I said this the other day, I think Moyes is the victim of his own success. Not only have we finished in Europe twice, European positions twice, people now expect more. We spent 180 million and now we should be at top of the league, etc. And what did we say at the start of the show? buying players, spending all this money doesn't necessarily buy you success. Moyes has got to change things around. I think it's within his grasp. I think he can do it. He's just got to do it. Keith, get Noble on the staff at all games. His presence is valuable. Morale will be right back up there again. I agree. Ryan, Rice hasn't exactly been great this season. A true leader does not sulk and moan. He digs in and leads by example. I absolutely agree with that comment as well. Hammerhead, Moyes out, and if you think he deserves more time, get lost your opinion. It's irrelevant, and you know nothing about the sport. Well, no, sorry, mate. As I said at the beginning of the show, and I said it halfway through it as well, everyone's entitled to their opinion. Some people will be Moyes out. Some people will be Moyes in. You're not right. I'm not right. You're not wrong. I'm not wrong. But to tell people to get lost about their opinion is not correct. I'm sorry, mate. But great respect to you for having your views, but you should allow other people to have theirs as well. Jonathan, the questions on Moyes have been that even when we're winning, now we're losing, the pressure is on. So if he picks up results again, he buys himself time, but long term, also Moyes' final year. It could well be. Yeah. Chris, a lot of us criticise Chelsea for getting rid of Tuchel so soon after all the signings he had made. Moyes needs to turn it around quickly, but he needs the opportunity to do it. He has earned the right. And that's a good point. And that is kind of where I'm at the moment. Steve, if we win the Euro Conference and stay up in this period of rebuilding, I'll be happy. And I 100% agree with you there. I think I was talking to Nigel was on a show recently, and he said, if we finish mid-table, but we've won a cup, I'd remember winning the cup than finishing sixth in the league or seventh in the league, etc. And I agree. A lot of people are thinking we're going to get relegated. I really genuinely don't think we will. I think, we will stabilise. Moyes will look at the back. And that's why I talked about Aguerd earlier on and about Dawson and Ogbonna. I just wonder how much he's lamenting not having had these players available to him sooner rather than not, because I think he relies on them to be the brick wall at the back that he hasn't had. That's nothing against Kerr. I think Kerr's been great. Zuma, as we know, it's taken a long time for him to get up to speed. He's starting to look good again, but I just wonder how much Moyes has missed those defenders to actually stop the rot at the back. Conan, I'm not comparing us to Charlton as such, Ballon, merely that they made a dire mistake sacking Curbs and never recovered. Can't believe the board is scrambling, though. Linked to Nagelsmann many times. The board won't jump yet. They won't. I think they'll wait until the World Cup and see where we're at then. Martin, the international break is coming up. Will Moyes still be in charge when the Premier League resumes? I believe he would, but who am I to say? Alex, it's not for us to say who we replace Moyes with. It's not our decision. Such a ridiculous question. Well, no, of course it's not up to us. It's not up to us at all. It's not up to us what happens. It's not up to us whether Moyes stays or whether he goes. It's up to the board. But the board will make the decision when they think the time is right. Black Country. I don't think Moyes has a plan B. He doesn't know what plan B is. All these news players leaves them on the bench. Well, he's got to now put plan B in motion. H&O, senior players have spoken out about systems. To who? I don't think they'd be brave enough to have spoken out in public. I could be wrong, though. Schmeigel, I don't like the way Moyes treats certain players. Sometimes all it takes is a bit of encouragement or to put an arm around the player, but he doesn't do any of that. He certainly doesn't do that for dear old Benrahma, who I think, I wonder, I'm really surprised he actually kept him in the summer transfer window. I just wonder whether Benrahma will still be here in January. Ballon. West Ham used to support their managers, and this is what I'm saying now. I know we're not happy. We're not happy. We want to see change. It's down to Moyes to make the change. But you've got to support the team. You've got to support the manager until that manager is no longer there. Hammerhead. He can't change things. It's too far gone. The players don't run for him. He's got to go. Clive, do you honestly believe that bringing in a new manager will change anything? I think there'll be a short-term gain, without a doubt. Usually happens. But it's the long-term that I worry about. It's the rest of the season, which is why I think West Ham will wait until the January transfer window. We'll wait until the World Cup and see where we're at then. Alex, all the polls by fan bases have swung to Moyes out. What? Yeah, I'm not surprised because, I did try to stop myself from saying it earlier on, but I guess I'll say it now. I could increase my subscription base and the number of people viewing if if I started shouting Moyes out from now on. If I started waving the flag of Moyes out, I can guarantee you I'll have loads of people watching. And but I'm not going there because I do think he deserves time. I do think he has it in him to make changes that will be beneficial to us. But if he doesn't, he'll fall on his own sword. You know, if he doesn't make the changes, then he's the one that will suffer for it. And I think the board will give him until the World Cup to change things around. Of course, the fan base. There's a lot of fans who, let's be honest, didn't want Moyes in the first place. So now, the first time that we're going through a lull, they're out in force. Get it? Don't agree with it, but I get it. Hammer it. HH and Alex and all the other Moyes out peeps. I respect your thoughts on the club, but I also disagree. For now, in my opinion, Moyes deserves more time to get things right. Doesn't make me stupid or deluded. And I back you on that, Hammerette. Totally agree. Cliff, if we don't beat Wolves, then surely that's that for Moyes. Can't keep giving him the benefit of the doubt forever. That's stupid. And I'm not saying that we should, but I think he will be given more time than we think. Right, I'm going to scroll down because I'm still almost about an hour behind. Allied. Agree, Hammerhead, it's gone too far. There's no way he's fixing all that. He's wrong. Let's just say that he did. How far would he be able to take us? Time for a change. Well, that's the question I asked at the very beginning of the season. What's success for West Ham United? After having been a yo-yo club for many a year, you know, and people saying supported West Ham for 50 years, seen it happen over and over again, even in John Lyle's day, etc., etc. What's success for West Ham? Is successful West Ham trying to finish in the top 4, trying to finish in the top 6, or in a year of transition, is successful West Ham maybe trying to get a cup and finishing mid-table? What's success for you in order to think he can't take us further than he already has? Steve, the doctor refused me painkiller for my back today, saying you suffer more pain supporting West Ham. Get on with it. Oh, dear. Kent, still, you want to get the Europa group done before Silkeborg home because we need to play kids in those games because 3 games in 6 days. I absolutely agree. Totally agree. Ken, I think probably you know as well as I do, Anderlecht are not the team that they used to be. They struggled against Silkeborg. They got a last-minute penalty. I think they got a draw against FCSB as well. And we've seen the level of FCSB. We should be able to wrap things up. I think winning the next game will virtually do it. And then we have Anderlecht in the game after as well. I think the next 2 games will definitely wrap things up. And then he's got all those players free to do what he wants in the European competition. I absolutely agree. Let's scroll down. Let's go to Vinay. Moyes is like a boat with a hole. He can use a bucket to take the water out, but I can't see him turning it around. I expect him to become more defensive and even more loyal to favourites. That does worry me, and I fear that that's where he'll go. He'll look at it and he'll go, we're leaking goals. We're continuing to leak goals. Let's shore things up because that's what I know what to do. And he might but I think that's dangerous. But I do agree with you. That's possibly the way he'll go. Adam, no games are easy. Just get behind the team in the stadium and away, and it will come together. The Ayers will to form. The players will show some form. Have faith. West Ham always make it hard. Let's scroll down. Lewis, if he does hammer it, I'll change my opinion. Don't mind losing if I see him trying something, but this has been going on a calendar year. No relegation form. We shall see. Kev, good evening to you. Victor Fenn, you're absolutely right. I remember my granddad used to say, West Ham come down with the Christmas decorations. We'd start okay, but end up 14th. It is the West Ham way. Good evening, Mandy. How are you? Benny needs to replace Fornals and Downs for Souček. Otherwise, Paquetá and Scamacca might as well go back home as Fornals does not link with them. That's not Fornals' fault, though. I can't blame Fornals. I feel sorry for him. Vinay, Scamacca does not need bedding in. Onana started immediately, so did Kera. Scamacca not a Moyes signing, and he is not really interested. He only has eyes for his beloved Antonio. Scamacca not interested. Are you saying that Scamacca's not interested? Because if you are, I dispute that. Or you saying Moyes is not interested in Skamaka? That is odd then if he's not. But it's worrying, to be honest, as well. Let's scroll down. Ian, good evening to you. DM needs to be more positive with tactics. I absolutely agree. Alex, no, I'm done. See you around. You lot can't. Yeah, you lot can refuse to see it, but I'm seeing it for months and being mocked and ridiculed, and you lot still back them. They don't care about the shirt they wear. I think you've got to accept, with the greatest of respect. Look, I do respect everyone's opinions, but Alex and Hammerhead and other people, you're more than welcome to voice your opinions, but don't have a go at other people who have a different opinion to you. You know, you have an opinion, that's fair enough. You want to keep repeating it, that's also fair enough. But do not have a go at other people if they have a different opinion to you. I said this at the start. I knew this was going to cause controversy. I said this at the start of the show, and I said it halfway through. The reason why we're West Ham fans, the best in the world, is because we have a difference of opinion. What I want, something happens in social media platforms that makes people go absolutely nuts. Not suggesting you're going nuts, Alex, but something happens on social media. If you're having a conversation about West Ham in a pub with a mate, are you going to be ranting and raving the way you do online? Probably not. I think it's fine to have conversations. I think it's absolutely fine to have a difference of opinion, but it's not fine to call other people stupid and idiots and etc., just because they don't have the same opinion as you. I believe that David Moyes is likely to pull it around, but I've also said that if he doesn't, he will be gone by the time the World Cup comes round. That's all I can say. That's only fair. I'm not trying to say that all is rosy, but other people have also got to see that there are differences of opinion out there. We're not all going to agree. Kev, Moyes wants them all. Moyes wants all of them to become utility players, like jack of all trades but masters of nothing. That does worry me, and that's what he's done to Fornals. To be quite honest with you, that is a bit of a worry. Okay, Hammerhead, you made your point. You don't like Moyes. Now, see, I don't want people arguing between each other. I really don't. I'm just not gonna mention people that are going to be so far to one side, whether it's too much Moyes in or too much Moyes out. I'm not going to put your comments up because it's stupid. Sorry, but there you go. Scarborough. Moyes has changed the DNA at West Ham. Can't just ditch him now. Times are hard. He's earned the chance to change things for the better, but he has got to be brave. I agree with that. Good evening to you, Lewis. Everton fan here. Are you lot worried about relegation, or do you think you'll be all right? Well, you can see from the comments, mate, there's a lot of people that think we will get relegated. And I personally don't. I don't think it'll end up being a good season. It certainly won't be a season like we've had the last two seasons, without a doubt. But honestly, no, I don't think we will get relegated. And I also don't think Everton will either. I think there will be three worse teams than Everton and West Ham in the league. And thank you for joining, by the way. Scarborough. Moyes has changed. Yeah, done that one. Thank you, mate. Andrew. Maybe Stuart Pearce saw the writing on the wall with Moyes' stubbornness and was the real reason why. Well, you know, we've been through that one as well. And apparently, Andrew, Stuart Pearce has said time and time again, you know, I just wanted to spend more time with my family. And I think we need to respect that. What worries me is, who's the other chap? Oh, damn it. The guy that left the season before that worried me more. Oh, damn it. His name's gone. Someone's going to remind me of his name. Lewis, Scarborough, if he changes his mindset, I'll change my mind. But he didn't, even at Everton. And some Everton fans I know were glad he left. The Wolves game is massive. I agree with that. Vinay, the 59-year doesn't stop the habit of a lifetime. Moyes is a defensive manager. He won't change. He's proud and stubborn and has a petty streak too, which will be the undoing of him. If he does, it will be the undoing of him. Clive, overtime. Look, another one. I'm going to promote myself because I'm shit at doing it. If you're new to the channel, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification to let you know when I'm next on to have my next rant. Thank you. Let's scroll down. Ballon, Black, at Black. So who's Black? Anyway, no one's calling that good form. Moyes has brought us a great 2.5 years. He deserves a chance to turn the ship around. Ryan. Moyes does deserve more time, but he is seriously testing my sanity. He needs to show players there are consequences for poor performances. And I agree with that. He's got to, you know, he's got to drop the likes of Bowen. Unfortunately, Bowen is just not at the races at the moment, and it might actually do him some good. I remember saying this about Antonio last season when Antonio was going through a rough patch. I suggested that it might not be a bad idea for Antonio to sit on the sidelines to see what's going on in order to come on and be that effective sub. And I think maybe Bowen needs that as well. He just needs to be taken out of the firing line. I was a bit baffled that Bowen started. But even if Bowen did start, then at least have Cornet on the other side. But when I saw the lineup, it did confuse me. It absolutely did. Ian, I would rather lose 3-0 having a go rather than trying to nick a win or play for a draw. I'm not DM out, but he needs to turn things around quickly or the board will act. I agree with that. I don't like that tactic. I absolutely don't like that approach either. I just this is what we want as West Ham fans, isn't it? If we lose, but we've given it a go, then we go, all right, we've lost, but there you go. But it's when we lose and we don't give it a go, that's the problem. But it's the manager's tactics making us play the way we're playing at the moment. Jerry, Paquetá's got to adjust to our league. Moyes was hoping he was going to be a Payet. I don't think so. Play him in the rightful position, Jerry, and we might see another Payet. Who knows? What time were you there? No, oh my God, you lot got a lot of chatting you tonight, haven't you? I'm going to go right down. I do apologise. Good evening to you, NWO. If Moyes lets Lanzini go, it's proof he knows nothing. I'm 2 games away from going full Moyes out. Did I mention that story earlier? Forgive me if I haven't. But the whole story about Lanzini apparently being allowed to leave in January, I don't believe that, to be quite honest with you. We do have an option on Lanzini for another 2 years that has yet to be triggered. I'm not so sure. I know Lanzini will be able to speak to foreign clubs and go on a free. But I've got a feeling that at 29, I think Lanzini's got some more in him. I think, like I said earlier in the show, playing Lanzini in a deeper playmaker role might suit him and West Ham an awful lot more. Adam, Moyes has been testing everyone's head and temper, but it's the players as well as Moyes sends them out, but they are not playing well and they should take some of the blame. I agree with that to a point. But at the same time, play them in their rightful positions and see how they might flourish. Moyes, Mandy, if Moyes plays Soucek, Rice and Fornals together one more time, then he should just leave. Even you're doing it, Mandy. Let's scroll down. Who we got here? Yurts, good evening to you. We have to write players for Rodgers to play attacking football. Keep Rodgers away from transfers. Let Newman do his thing and we'll be good. Newman did do his thing though, didn't he? Newman talked about how there was a lot of involvement in getting the players in with him, the scouting system, the board, the manager, etc., etc. Oh, trying to keep up with you lot is a nightmare. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to just keep scrolling down. James, Vlasic is not killing it. Okay, he scored 3 goals in 7 games. I've watched the games. Put Antonio on the wing and Skamaka in the lead role. Learn to dig. Good evening to you. The Arsenal comparison was always doomed to fail. Oh, yes, when we're talking about the beginning of the season when Arsenal weren't doing well, but look how they picked up. I know you're right there now, mate. I hope you're well. Thank you for joining. Oh, I've scrolled down too far. Where has that gone? Forgive me. I've lost my place. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go to... There we go. Hammerit. Peter Jones. Pac-Man only signed 25 days ago. Takes a bit of time, but there is a limit for the sake of our Premier League future for sure. Scarborough. Paquetá is best in the right of a 3 in midfield. Stick downs deep. Rice, Paquetá running either side of him. Yeah, mentioned that earlier. Agree. Howard. Chill. Everybody here's a dude. Take a hit and pass the touchy. Agreed. Chill out, people. Don't argue with each other. We're all West Ham fans and we all want the same thing. We all want what's best for the club. Lee, Moyes constantly talking about easing players in. About time he eased them in now or he'll be easing himself out of a job. I agree. I do agree. If he takes too long, I agree. Landstig, how much will it cost to replace Antonio? I personally learned to dig with the greatest of respect. I don't want to replace Antonio. I want to have a different striker to play a different option. If I'm really, really honest, I love him for what he's done. But if I'm really genuinely honest, I don't want another Antonio because it will be more hoofball like people have been saying. I want the Skamaka system to be employed. I want the Skamaka system to be put into the team where we're playing it to the striker, where we've got players around the striker, so we don't have to hoof it up to him. With the greatest of respect, I know he's been brilliant for us. I know he's our top Premier League goal scorer and all that sort of stuff. And I deeply respect Antonio. But honestly, I don't want an Antonio replacement. I don't want a like for like. I genuinely don't. David Truelock, good evening to you. You're right. Antonio Scamacca, a difference of why replace Antonio with Scamacca in the Everton game and expect him to do the same just worries me. Yeah, unfortunately, it's not going to work. Anthos. Hi all, bought the player still, but I can't help thinking Moyes is a one-trick pony. Well, he's got a little bit of time to prove that he's not. Mice Collective. Benny is the best attacking player only. An anti-Benny fanatic will be able to see it. I agree. He has been, he created the best chance for us against Everton when it hit the post. I don't get why he doesn't like it. I don't get it, to be honest. I really don't. NWA. Benny can't take or give a tackle, lose the ball a lot, creates little, scores less. Well, again, I disagree with that because of Benny's been our better player, our better attacking player this season. Scarborough. But he's not consistent. I'll give you that. Scarborough. This is exactly the team I would go with and posted that on Twitter. I would have Downs deep at the base of Rice and Paquetá. God, how long ago did I put that team up? That's an hour ago. Lee, Zuma is a rock, not putting a foot wrong since he joined us, except through. Well, I would say that Zuma started off really, really, really sluggish, but I give you, he's been, he's getting back to his best without a doubt. With that, I agree. Okay, Alex, one last thing before you leave. You think Moyes will stay? His odds have dropped. I know they've dropped. I know, mate. Alex, look, mate, seriously, I'm not having a go at you. You do have your opinion, and I respect it. I really, really do. But I think people trying to ram down their thoughts on other people, unfortunately, it isn't going to work. So I respect you. I know the odds have dropped, but then who knows? Who knows? Lee. Souček, Bowen, Soufal, Fornals must have something on Moyes. Pigs, what are we thinking? Crazy Cole. I was already peed off before arriving here. Now seeing these systems, I'm about to explode. Still, stop it. Move on. I'm going insane. I do apologise. Hammerhead. Scarborough, Hammer, Benny. All right, mate. He just walks around. Pablo's best position is central midfield, to be fair, but he's done very well before on the left wing. Role, especially attacking left wing. I feel sorry for Pablo. I really do. I think Pablo Fornals is an excellent footballer. I just don't think he should be played out on the left side. I know he's done a job there, but now that we've got players that can play out on the left side, there's no reason to play him. I'd rather see Fornals in the middle. Put him alongside Declan, like I said earlier on. Lewis, has Rice been good this season? He was okay against us, but not as influential as I remember. No, even he is off the boil, to be honest with you. He's getting there, but not the same way as none of the players have got that spark. And David Moyes, I know David Moyes came out after the game and blamed some of his senior players for not performing. I wonder who he was alluding to, because you can point the finger at quite a number of them. If you look at who played in that game, Soufal, we know has not been playing well. Bowen has not been playing well. Souček has not been playing well. Antonio, maybe for the service, has not been playing well. And even Declan is not what he was last season. So there's quite a few senior players that have not been doing it so far this system. Lundstick, what changed your mind still? We've got nothing new in the last 4 weeks. Nothing's changed my mind because I've not said Moyes out. And I won't. But I have qualified that by saying I believe he's got until the World Cup to change things around. And if he does, I'm going to be interested. If he does, I'm not going to gloat. If he changes things around, I'm not going to gloat and go, I told you so. But what's happening with a lot of Moyes out advocates at the moment and going, I told you so. We've had 2.5 seasons of really good football. We're having a really bad spell at the moment. Okay, carried over into the end of last season as well. I've not changed my mind. I hope Moyes changes it around. I want to see continuity at the club. And I think at the moment, with what we've got in place, what Moyes has done in terms of the setup, in terms of the scouting system, etc., having some tactic in who we buy rather than randomly or having Sullivan specials, I want to see that. I want to see that be successful. What worries me is if Moyes leaves, all that will be thrown away. Another manager will come in with different ideas, different approaches, etc., different players. And let's not forget, there's an awful lot of managers around at the moment that want to be successful for the now, not for the long term. What do we want as a club? What do we want at West Ham United? Do we just want success for the now? And then not worry about what happens tomorrow, because that's the road we'll be heading to if we keep chopping and changing our managers. The one thing that I like about Moyes, I wasn't a Moyes in person when he first came to us. I was a bit what, and then when he came to us the second time, I was again what. But he's won me over, and he's won me over not just what's happened on the pitch, but also what's happened off it. The scouting network, the way we buy our players, etc., etc. He's put an element of structure into West Ham United that we haven't had for a long time. And what worries me about him leaving, if he does go, is that all that structure will be gone with him. And that's the big thing that concerns me. And then we've got to start again. And yes, we may well get a manager in who will be successful and might get us a bit further up the league, etc. But what if that manager's got ambitions? Pellegrini came in, gave us all the big I am, and look what happened there. And I'm worried that we get another manager that is not going to be here for the long term. That's the thing that worries me. So I haven't changed my mind, but I do admit that if we do not pick up between now and the World Cup, then things might be a lot different. Keith, we know that VAR is utter crap, but I have always said if a team needs a referee decision to win games, then they are not good enough to be where they are. We need to be better. I agree. What am I up to? Right, I've got to go right down to the bottom because I'm going to jump. Do forgive me, people. I'm going to miss out a lot of your comments. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I've just seen Neil's comment. Here we go. Some people say Moyes has plenty of credit in the bank, but the way I see it is his account is way overdrawn, and I think the creditors will soon be knocking on his door. Yeah, I think he's still got a little bit of credit, but let's see. Ian, I'm not sure DM realises the position he's in. He didn't appear to be too bothered when interviewed after the game on Sunday. I agree, 4-3-3 is the way to go. Zan, it's a new name, so welcome. How many teams have spent 200 million and the starting 11 is the same players as last season? What are we? Real Madrid, it's disappointing. I agree, Zan. I do agree that I would have expected more of the new players to be starting. Taz, good evening to you. Just as long as we stay in the Premier League, losing out on Europa for a year won't hurt us because the last 2 years we have gone hard in every competition. Good point, Nat. That's a really good point. If we don't make it into a European competition next season, it's not the worst thing in the world. If we just finish, mid-table or whatever, then who knows? That might not be a bad thing for us, to be quite honest with you. Jonathan, personally, despite many messages, I'm not Moyes out, but I don't like many of his traits. He needs to take a fresh look at things. Otherwise, he will sack himself. I agree. Absolutely. Good evening to you, Irish Tommy. If Moyes isn't sacked now, the board may have to sack him during a very busy October schedule or wait until the World Cup break. Neither is ideal, so let's hope he turns things around. I agree with you, mate. I hope you're well. Thanks for joining. Stephen, Moyes will never take us any further. He's too stubborn to change. He hasn't noticed the problem since Christmas, so nearly a year we have been poor. You say that, and yet we've finished in European competitions for the last 2 seasons. So again, what's further for us? I still don't get that from many fans. I don't know what they understand further to be. What's further for us? To make Europe again? To make Champions League? I talked about making Champions League a few weeks ago, where you can't just spend 180 million pounds this year and then hope to make Champions League and then stay in there. You've got to spend 180 million next year and the year after and the year after. You've got to be consistently spending your money to break into that top 4. Are we a team that's ever going to break into that top 4? How many teams have broken into the top 4 that kind of shouldn't be there? We've had the oddity of Leicester. Otherwise, there's Man United, Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, continuously. Jason, a new manager with a higher pedigree, relationship has gone sour, and the sooner the better. Wasn't Pellegrini with a higher pedigree, and look where that went. I guess that's what I'm saying. Happy. I've got to be Hammerette. I've got to be optimistic about the team and the future with Moyes at the helm. Otherwise, what's the point in even watching us play? How far down? Hammers Peters. Good evening to you. It's Mr. Paul Peters there. How are you, mate? I recognise those glasses. Soufal seems the only player that wants to carry the ball up the pitch. His mindset is forward, unlike a lot of the sideway passing players. Give him a central attacking role. Only a thought. And I know you're taking the piss. Absolutely taking the piss. I'll have words with you afterwards. Scarborough. Tasman, agree, mate. Not some fans can't seem to handle the fact that we are having a really bad time for the first time in 2 years. We are having a really bad time. But let's see what happens if we get through this. We will get through it. This is a transition period, Jay Hammer. Mid-table finish and the cup win is fine with me. I'm the same. I've said the same thing. Ian. I love Rice, but maybe not the captain we need. Ogbonna would be good, but he's not on the pitch enough. Feel there is a vacuum in leadership in the squad. That's a really good point. And I talked earlier about, is Declan suffering from this at the moment? It's all very, very well being captain of a winning team. It's a completely different kettle of fish when you're captain of a team that isn't winning. And I wonder if he's not able to handle it at the moment. Jason, success is putting a team on the pitch with the ability to pass. Agreed. Play with a tactical awareness. Agreed. Create a dozen chances each game and the ability to see problems and change personnel and tactics quicker. Now, the only thing there is we are creating chances. The irony is we're not getting them on target. We are actually, weirdly enough, how many chances did we have for the weekend? We had loads, corners and this, that, and the other. But we just weren't putting them away. Taz. Fornals has a bad game and people say he's crap, but when he's a blinder, he's the West Ham Messi. So true, Taz. So true. There is nothing wrong with Fornals, but also nothing wrong with giving players who are not in form at the moment a bit of a respite and putting other players in. I agree with you. Hammerhead. No one's having a go at anyone, to be fair. I'm just spitting my friend Stelios. People have personally made comments to me. I've been nothing but nice. No, I'm not saying you have. I haven't actually said you, and I know you. You're a decent fella, etc. But I just guess everyone's getting heated up. It's a massive topic. It's a massive debate that we're going through at the moment. It's a massive issue. It's the first time that for quite a while that we've been experiencing this since the Pellegrini time. You think back, how long ago was that? 3 seasons ago now. Three odd seasons ago, where we were having a torrid time under Pellegrini. There was everything was not going well, and we've been riding the crest of a wave, haven't we, for the last 2.5 seasons? It's been wonderful to be a West Ham fan, but we're going through this, and we just need to go through it together. And I agree. I'm not having a go at you. Together. Good evening to you. Good evening. Thank you for joining, mate. Luke Legend, how are you? I am stupid and I'm happy that way. We're all stupid, mate. H&O. This is really worrying me, and it's the treatment of Benny. It's borderline bullying. Benny needs an arm around the shoulder, not bad-mouthing in interviews after games and being dropped always. That I do agree. I do not know why he's got it in for Ben Rama in the way that he has. Jay Hammer, last season form suffered for going to the Europa League, which gave us some of our best nights for a long time. And weren't they memorable indeed? Scarborough. Fact we finished 6 and 7 back to back, and we also got to a European semi-final, regardless of the recent form. We did, and we've also got to remember that. But at the same time, we can't live on just our memories only. Jason, got to respect other people's opinions. Most communication is through body language, which doesn't happen online. Keep it real. Thank you for that. I'm going to scroll. I'm trying to catch up. I'll tell you what, you've really kept me on my guard tonight. Here we go. There's a new name. I'm going to bring up a new name. Kiosi, good evening to you. Have you seen our stats on possession, pressure, and progressive runs and passes? They're shocking. They are. They're surprisingly shocking, given that's what Moyes worked on when he first came back to the club. The running, the possession, pressure, etc. It's all fallen away, and that's really weird. Zan, if Moyes will not stop playing Antonio, moving to the left wing, Cornet needs to play, and I prefer him at centre forward or a striker role. Good shout. Yeah, that's a good shout. Jason. Tuchel Poch, what makes you think Moyes is going to change and do the things you want him to do? He only shows signs of battening down the hatches and repeating the same errors. I do fully expect him to go a bit more defensive minded. I do. But what I want to see from that, I don't have a problem with that. There's nothing wrong. Look at the way Everton played. Their defenders were superb at the weekend. They got in the way of just about every shot that was going on target. And I don't have a problem with that. But so long as he can give his attacking players the freedom to express themselves, I have no problem with battening down the hatches. So long as the players ahead are given the freedom to play. But I know a lot of you are saying that that's the bit that might not happen. John, still, we have 8 Premier League games before the World Cup break, 5 home, 3 away, all home games, very winnable. What do you think is an acceptable minimum tally from those 8 games? I think I said it myself earlier. Let's bring them up and let's go. Hang on, let's get them up on the board just to remind us what games they are. So we've got, let's get rid of your comment there, mate. So we've got Wolves at home. I'd like to think that we can win that. Will I be happy with a draw? I won't be happy with it. I will accept it, but I like to think that we can win that. Fulham, I think, should be a winnable game. So there, let's say minimum 4 points there. And then Southampton away, tricky one. Go away with a point on that. I would kind of accept that as well. I know that sounds a bit defeatist, but let's just say for argument's sake, that's another point. That's 5 points. Liverpool, well, who knows? Bournemouth, I think at home, got to be a win. That's 8 points. Man United, again, they're on form at the moment. Crystal Palace could be another banana skin, but I would expect that to be another 3 points. That's 11 points. And then Leicester. So I'm going with you, 13 points, probably the same wins, etc. I would accept that. Mice Collective. Feel sorry for Souček. He looks demoralised. He should try and pass to the other side. Then he might pass to another West Ham player. Hammerhead. Of course, Scarborough Hammer. You think, but Moyes is too predictable, and so are some of our players that ruined our chances last season in Europa League, like Creswell sending off. We did talk about Creswell. I think he was unlucky for the first and he was left exposed for the second. But, you know, Rooney, good evening to you. If our new players aren't getting played even when they perform well, then they won't be able to sharpen that the current starters with competition in training. I agree. This is why we've got a squad, isn't it? This is why Moyes has got a squad, so he can drop the players who are not in form and play the players who are in form. As I said at the beginning of the show, if Moyes is determined to have a particular 11 for the Premier League and a particular 11 for European and Cup competitions, then maybe he needs to start thinking about who those 11 should be in the Premier League, because at the moment, they're not right. J Hammer. Our back four dropped too deep too quickly. We need them to push up. Zuma and Kera need to step up and push us up the pitch. Good point. Yeah, I accept that. Am I close? Getting closer. People, you've been absolutely superb tonight for completely keeping me on my guard. Disabled team. Regarding changing minds, to be fair, Stel, it's not to be fair to Stel, it's not Stel who needs to change his mind. It's Moyes who needs to change his mindset. Thank you for that. Funky T. Is a sign of a good manager is to be able to turn things around. So he should be given time to do so. You don't get 1,000 games if you're a shit manager, in my opinion. Absolutely agreed. Hammerette, this is not all down to Moyes. He doesn't make every player out of form. It's natural to drop standards at time. Just too many poor at the same time. Decent players need to be benched. Decent players are benched. That is the Moyes issue. Agree. Taz, we have hit a bad spell after 2 years of great work. So why can't it be changed around? Of course it can. Nobody is perfect. I agree with that. And I'm hoping that it will change around. And I fingers crossed for Moyes. Otherwise, as people say, he'll be out of a job. Good evening, Reese. Right, everyone. Good to see you all. I'm off to work. Have a good evening, mate. I hope you're well. And take care. Tony, still in October, Moyes will have to have a cup team and a Premier League team, 9 games in 30 days. Let's hope he picks a better Premier League 11 than he has done so far. I agree with that. Hammerhead, I've said he was best as a central midfielder. He can do a job on the left if he's an attacking winger, not a wing back. Even so, play Cornet on the left, not Benny. Whether it be Benny or whether it be Cornet, it should be someone more naturally suited. I agree with you on that. Good evening to you, Troj. How are you? Thank you for joining. Ban them knee jerkers, HH. Get working, Hammerette. Amit. Fans need to stop behaving like popcorn. 2 years of good results, and now this transition period. Change is only Change is the only constant. Yeah, good point. Cameron was thinking how intriguing it will be if Deck does leave and plays West Ham, and we'll see how much Deck controls the game over Souček. Probably a lot. Trudge, good evening, Howard. I hope you're well. Saying hello to everyone. Taz, Rice is finding out that what Noble did as captain is a lot harder than what he thought it'd be. That's a really good point, Taz. And I, as I mentioned earlier, it's not easy being a captain of a team that's not on form. Slime, good evening to you. Still, it takes me and my kids 4.5 hours to get to the stadium. Do you think the NFC issues causing issues getting into the stadium and queues of over 45 minutes long prior to kickoff will get better? No, I wish I could say yes, but unfortunately not. Every time you go to a game, make sure your NFC is updated. That's the first thing. If you're worried, then download it onto your email and print it out. That might be the better thing, mate. It's a pain in the arse. And it wasn't good in the last game either. Anthos, what happened since last year? Every time we had a set piece was like getting a penalty. This year, still learning. I don't know what the hell's happened. Our corners are abysmal. Didn't Ben Rama take the corner and it hit the side? It didn't even get past 2 foot up in the air and it hit the side netting. I don't know what's happened to our corners. Taz, I'm optimistic about this turnaround, and I should know I live in a Spud village and I wear my West Ham shirt with pride in this village. Good on you, mate. Jonathan, I would love to sit down with Rice, as I'm sure he's struggling on what to do, frustrated with his teammates and shouting or speeches having no effect. It takes a while to know what to do. Been there. Yeah, that's a really good point. Declan needs to learn how to be a captain when the going is tough. Slime Maker again. Also, the red light, green light game we had to play on the way out causes a lot of added time onto people's experience. Mate, don't walk out that side. Go to the back of the stadium and walk out the Hackney Wick end. And if you need to get to Stratford, you can take one stop to Stratford and then you'll avoid all of that queuing. Moyes is a bully. Bullies Benny because he hates skill. Passive-aggressive bullying of Areola and others. Don't need Moyes. He's a dick deep down. Dear. What am I up to? 11:09. I'm nearly there. We've done about an hour and a half of chat, but it's all good. It's all good. Mice. Biggest troll is Moyes. He's trolling the fans, the board, the players, and the journalists. Moyes is here under a fake name, having a good laugh. Keith, calm yourself down, mate. I think Alex has gone. Dignity, you said an hour ago that you were leaving. Thanks for staying, but be calm. Oh, he's still there. Oh, mate, you're going for that. I'm sorry, but no, you're gone. He's gone. What he just said, bang out of order. He's gone. He's been blocked. And that was right down the bottom as well. Right. Trudge. Kera playing instead of Soufal wouldn't be a bad shout if we're reverting to type with Dawson back in as centre-back. Yeah, I said it earlier. I think he's missing Dawson, Ogbonna, and a fit Aguerd. I think he really is. Right. That's it. Thank you all, people, for your comments. They've been enlightening. I really appreciate it. You certainly kept me on my toes. I do honestly apologize for not being able to read out all of them, but I was way behind and trying to catch up. Look, we are West Ham. We all love West Ham. We want the best for West Ham. And we're all passionate about it, which is good. But be nice to each other online. Like I said, you don't act this way when you're in a pub talking about West Ham. Well, one or two of you might do. Hammerhead, you're all good, mate. Don't worry. It wasn't you I was referring to. The person I was referring to has now been banned. Respect to you all. I'll be back again tomorrow with another show, so do watch out for that. If you're new to the channel, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and all that sort of stuff, and the bell notification to let you know when I'm next on. Really appreciated. Thank you all, and I'll see you very soon. I've run out of saliva in my mouth. I can't talk anymore.